It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Anyways, this is the 3G podcast, and we have a special guest. RNG Gamer joins us this week, recruited by Greg out of the bowels of YouTube. Want to introduce yourself? Say what you're all about.
Oh, hey everyone! I'm RNG Gamer, James, and I'm a game collector and longtime gamer, and I'm just here to answer some questions and see what's going on with this podcast.
Oh, geez. Well, what's going on with this podcast? We're a bunch of dorks who have... why did we start this, Greg?
Prepare to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, no, sorry, hey, we're not gonna boost your channel at all.
I still claim the multiplayer thing when I talk to people. I'm like, oh yeah, it's mainly for multiplayer.
Yeah, we kind of just...
Have you seen my trophy list?
So we can play games together and just talk about games and game news.
Yeah, because I mean, like Greg and I, we were writing. We wrote that Fallout 4 guide, and then
that's the first time we met each other.
Yeah. We just got recruited by some third party to write a guide.
It's easier to go back to where we came.
And we're nerds, we're losers, we're dorks. We play video games, and we decided, we're gonna share stories and talk about all the news and stuff. And we're like, instead of just like texting on what was it, Google at the time we were using. And now Facebook. We're like, why don't we just actually get together and shoot the shit about video games every weekend? And we've been doing it for a couple of years now.
I will say this is where I get almost all of my gaming news from.
And we in turn get almost all of it from Gamatsu. So we're not journalists. We are just poorly informed commentators.
Hey, I may be more of a journalist than some of these places.
It's a low bar these days. It's a low bar.
It may be true. Have you seen Polygon try to play Doom?
Okay, it's a bit of an old reference at this point, but yes, we all saw that.
I'm old. I live in the past. That's what old people do.
I'm still butthurt about all these Saints Row reviews because I think
he's the youngest of us.
He is the youngest. Well, I don't know.
I'm the oldest in spirit.
How old? That is true. That is true. To be fair. He's the youngest physically, the oldest mentally. Not emotionally, mentally.
Yeah, not emotionally.
You're a codger, is what I'm trying to say.
A little bit.
Well, he acts like a child a lot of the time.
So, let's talk for a bit about how I found RNG Gamer.
Yes.
I do a lot of reviews for GameFAQs still, even though that site is just unfortunately dead. And they have a review board. And we've been chatting on there for, probably months. And that's how I found him. He started a YouTube channel, and it's been absolutely fantastic, I think, so far. Like, not even lying. That's an entertaining channel. But his entire name, for those who don't know, he picks what games he plays based on a very complicated system. With charts, and like every 10 games you give yourself a point so you can actually play something you want. And it's complicated. I'm not gonna lie.
You know what, Greg?
You're probably just used to it by now, right?
It's unnecessarily complicated. I definitely lean into that whenever I describe it. And I made this 20-minute stream of consciousness video where I tried to describe it, and that was edited down. That was only like maybe 1/3 of what goes on with the whole system. But I remember when it first started many years ago, I would pick up a few games here or there, and instead of putting them on the shelf alphabetized like everything else and organized, I would like stack the games that were in my backlog in the corner of the room. And when it was time to play a new game, I would just kind of like go through the stack and think, this looks good or whatever. But 90% of the time, I would just go back and play a game I've already played before. I would just play the same games over and over like everybody else does. So I decided to like incentivize myself to play through this stack. And the way that I did it was I would like grab the entire stack and set it in the middle of the floor, and I'd split it into 2 equal-sized piles. And I would flip a coin, and And like heads, I would pick the pile on the left. Tails, I would pick the pile on the right. And then I would just keep subdividing the stack and flipping coins until I would get down to the one game. And the reason I stopped doing that, honest to God, was that the two stacks got taller than the top of my head.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably because you have...
I could no longer stack them up. So I decided to incorporate it all into like a spreadsheet. And now I just add them like chronologically as I get them. But yeah, I've made my whole thing playing through my backlog using like a random number generator.
Which is immensely better than sitting down and flipping a coin 50 times.
Yeah,
you know what? It wasn't even just 50 times, man. It was like 75 times.
That sounds insane. And if it wasn't for that Warhammer story you told just before we started this podcast, I would seriously be wondering, like, what form of demented mind decides to do that? But after that Warhammer story, it makes all the sense in the world. Because Warhammer is basically just rolling a million die sixes to come to a very simple result, and no, it makes sense. Flipping a coin like 30 times to come to one game. I'm seeing analogies here. Am I crazy?
It's at 75.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. My wife says it's like almost like a serial killer's ritual when I pick a game.
Yeah, I think that's.
I can see serial killer tendencies.
I like your wife.
You just like serial killers.
All women do.
Oh, fair enough.
But yeah, it's been a good system. I've enjoyed it. It's led me to play a lot of really interesting stuff and discover stuff I normally wouldn't play. Because you just kind of like force yourself to play these games that you're like, do you really want to play Starsky and Hutch on the PS2? And you're like,
too bad, no choice now.
No, I'm gonna play it. And then you discover things like it's the only game I know in existence where you can use a racing wheel and a light gun, and while you drive in a race, you can shoot the other people by pointing at the screen.
You know, I've never thought of that, but now that you've mentioned it, I have no idea why that doesn't exist. Like,
it does in Starsky and Hutch on the PlayStation 2.
That should be like a major piece of gaming paraphernalia. Like, no, seriously, they shouldn't sell driving wheels without like a gun. Am I crazy or
a little? Yeah.
I mean, it's a cool idea. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's hard to do.
Imagine trying to implement that with something like Road Rash.
I know, right? That'd be awesome.
That'd be crazy. There, I'm trying to throw out what little 8 and 16-bit bona fides I have. Not many. So, when did you get started playing games? I like to know gamers' origin stories. It's a personal tick of mine.
I got a Nintendo Entertainment System, an NES, for Christmas when I was 5. I remember on Christmas Eve, my parents would always they would let me open like one present.
Same here. I had to go to church.
In the morning.
Yeah.
Yep. They would let me open one present on Christmas Eve, and so I grabbed one and opened it up, and it was like a Nintendo game. And I was like, "What is this?" And my mom was like, "Oh, the cat's out of the bag. If you open the Nintendo game." And I didn't have a Nintendo. She's like, "Well, I guess he gets to open that too."
What?
So,
what?
Yeah,
what kind of parents did you have? Why wasn't I adopted by them?
It was nice, but
ones.
it was the first time I ever stayed up all night, and I stayed up till like 5 or 6 in the morning playing Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, and then of course they woke me up and dragged me to church.
Which one did you boot first?
It was Super Mario Brothers because
Okay.
I had seen my cousin playing it. And before that, I had no concept of a video game whatsoever. Like, I remember going to my cousin's house, and he had just gotten an NES, and he was playing Super Mario Brothers, and I thought it was like some kind of weird cartoon. I'd never been to an arcade or anything, and I was enthralled by it. I had to have one, so my parents, they bought me an NES, and I enjoyed it for many, many years. I'm still enjoying playing the NES to this day and discovering new games on it.
So what made you, like, there's a special kind of crazy that has affected pretty much everyone of our generation. I assume we're fairly close in age.
I don't know. How old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, yeah. I turned 40 next month.
Okay, I mean, you got an NES when you're 5. That kind of pigeonholes you into that whole range.
That could have been in 1998. You never know.
That's
Maybe
true.
my
I mean,
parents weren't great.
I was stuck with a Sega Genesis from like 1993 until 1999. I didn't get any new hardware until then. So it can happen. But what made you like go the extra level of crazy and go, I should like have a basement lined with bookshelves just full of games from systems that I probably didn't own or appreciate back when they were new? Because that's another level, we can agree, right?
Yeah, so I've talked about this a lot. I have a lot of friends that are collectors, and I just kind of assumed everybody got into it the same way I did, and turns out I don't know anybody that got into it the same way I did. The way I got into it was shortly after I got out of college. I decided that I wanted to find all the stuff I had as a kid and play it again.
No, that's exactly what I did. Okay, yeah. Finally.
Yeah, so I just wanted to find the stuff I had as a kid and play that again. And once I had most of that, I was like, you know what would be cool? If I found the stuff I could never afford when I was a kid.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God, that's how I got into collecting my Little Ponies again.
And then after that, it was like, oh, you know what would be cool is to find, like, some of the stuff that was a little more interesting on the system, the hidden gems, if you will. And then about that time, like, YouTube really started taking off, and I started seeing collectors on YouTube and stuff. And I wasn't picking up a lot of stuff. If you watch my most recent video, I guess that came out yesterday, I talk about my, like, first big haul. I think I probably had about 600 games.
I assume you've heard of Metal Jesus Rocks, right?
Yeah, I know Metal Jesus. I see him at a lot of conventions and stuff. I really got into it when I bought a collection off a guy and like doubled the size of my collection. And at that point, I was like, man, you can pick this stuff up really inexpensively. It's like basically free. And I love just being surrounded by it while I'm playing like a game. I love like looking around and looking up and seeing old console boxes and cool games, and while games are loading, I'll reminisce about other games that I played, and it's sort of fun. And that's what got me into it. Really was just basically it's like a virus in your brain. What got me into it is obsessive compulsive disorder issues.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I don't think I've never bought a collection, but I do, like, the first moment like I had was making my own money. I joined the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 4 years. That was like all disposable income. Like the first thing I went out and bought was a Nintendo 64 and Ocarina of Time.
Well, it didn't have to be disposable income, Greg. You could have
saved,
was
for the time,
invested. You could have planned ahead.
I invested in old Nintendo games.
You could have, done something like maybe save up for the future college funds of your children.
Oh, they can get through the same way I did.
Join the military.
Join the military.
I just want to say something. I'm playing Diablo 2, and I just got a Geeds and a +1 summoning skills.
Necro?
Grand Charm, and Necro, with a maximum damage in one run.
What percent Geeds?
It's only 27.
Oh, okay.
It's 13% reduced vendor price, so.
Let us know when you get that Shaco. I'm still waiting on it. Rebecca and I met on BattleNet years ago. So I was looking at your collection, right? And just to clarify, like, we might have gotten into this the same way, but the pathology is clearly spread further in you because, like, just last year I bought, like, all the... I had money. I had money for, like, the first time forever. So I don't, like, own a whole bunch of old games, but I've been buying a lot of, like, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360. That's when I was able to actually start buying stuff regularly. Now I have money that I can just burn, and before I started spending it on, the Warhammer minis, which is stupid, I decided I want to go. I was watching. There's some YouTuber, and he went and looked over at his shelf, and he had a whole bunch of box games. And I'm like, man, I forgot how gorgeous big box PC games were when you just stack them on a shelf. And I was like, I cut my teeth on PC gaming in the 90s. I really love a lot of these games. So why don't I own them anymore? I mean, I was trash at taking care of my games back when I was a teenager. Like, I had all these games, and they got lost. I would just keep all my discs stacked on my desk, so some of them would end up scratched if they ended up on the bottom for too long. Just really bad stuff. Makes me angry to think about. But
Made me angry when I found out you did that.
well, yeah, that's the thing that happened. So I just decided last year I'm going to buy all these boxes again, and got the Baldur's Gates. I was looking at your collection, judging you as we do.
Oh my god.
And you had like the Diablo 2 and the all that stuff, and then you mentioned I'm not the biggest fan of CRPGs, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to talk to Greg and cancel this because I don't think this can happen. But then you showed some other stuff. God, I can't remember what it was, but you were talking. Oh, it was Fire Emblem. You were talking about how much you loved Fire Emblem 3 Hopes and Awakening. I'm like, okay, no, podcast back on. We can do this. So I like.
So we did do a Fire Emblem guide.
We did do a two, technically kind of two, but we worked on different parts of Fates. And I just want to let you know that I am profoundly and insanely jealous of one thing in your collection.
Oh, yeah.
And that is that Fire Emblem Fates Special Edition, which I could not get my hands on when it was new. They just sold out instantly, and now they're just like hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, and I pre-ordered that from, I think, GameStop. And seriously, this is the truth. They shipped it to me. They literally put the shipping label on that box. They didn't put the Fire Emblem's character in another box. And it showed up like almost immaculately. I could not believe it. It looked like the post office took it out of another box and like put it on the front step.
I almost think it's fair if you were to go back. I don't know if you did or not, but it should be. It should be absolutely fair if you go back and yell at them. Yeah, but they still have the sticker on the box.
Greg is our native Karen. He's
100% a Karen.
They did the same thing to my PlayStation Classic, but it was like $20.
Yeah.
They just threw the sticker. It was Amazon though.
I always used like a heat gun or like a hair dryer, a blow dryer, to heat the glue to get the stickers off things. And I recently learned that if you take like a compressed air canister and turn it upside down so that it like over chills, that's even better. Like the sticker will just like chip off.
Oh.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I just learned about it. But yeah, that Fire Emblem Fates Collector's Edition, I was excited to get it. And like I said, it showed up perfectly. It went through hell to get to me. And I had it up on the shelf, and my daughter one day was playing inside, and she like kicked a ball or something, and it flew up 7 feet in the air and hit that exact box and knocked it off behind the TV, and it got like a little ding in it. But it was a lot of fun. I liked that it had the all 3 games on one cartridge, which was really a cool idea.
You were also complaining about
to not have children.
You bought a collector's edition, right? And you complained that it had a digital code. I can't remember what game it was for, but I distinctly remember you going. And then this one came, and then they released another version, and it had a physical.
It was the Battle Garega Japanese collector's edition.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, wasn't just like a collector's edition. It was only sold on M2's website, which is poorly done in Japanese, and it went on sale at, I think it was like 3 a.m. my time on like, I think it was New Year's morning or something like that. And I had to wake up, and it wasn't even like putting my credit card information into some sort of online application. Like I had to like click a link to email them my credit card information. I was like, I just had my identity stolen. I'm like 100% sure.
Your wife's going to divorce you when you tell her, yeah, no, I had to buy this game.
I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway. And so not only was it just a download code, it was this huge hassle to get the game. And I think they only made like 1,000 copies of it or something like that, which I understand doing like 1,000 copies on like a PS4 run because that's the minimum order to have your game printed, you know.
Yeah.
But when you don't freaking print the game and it's just like a box with like a manual and some books and postcards and like an arcade marquee in it, like why limit it? It's just paper. Like you're literally just making a bunch of paper.
Yeah.
So I was super bummed. So I got it in the mail and then I decided I was going to rip it open and I was like, I'll watch an unboxing first. And it was just like 400 videos of people angrily like, because it never said it was going to be a download code only.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's really cheap.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of physical games. I think that goes for all of us. If you're going to collect, I mean, you can't collect this digital crap. So, not that I'm like fundamentally opposed to it, although.
Yeah, I remember the packaging for the Persona, the Persona Dancing Endless Night Collection. It was like cheap ass packaging.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like a cardboard, like.
Slightly bigger than the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
I have that.
Did you buy the, I'm just curious, if anyone here bought the new Persona 5, like the next gen new collector's edition they're doing?
Of Royale.
Yeah.
Well, the one more time edition.
Nah.
See, I kind of wanted to buy that at first, and then I went to add it to my cart, and it said $40 shipping, and I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I cannot stand having to pay shipping. I don't know, like, I can justify it to myself if I look up the full price of another version of the game, and it's cheaper to get something with shipping than it is to buy from some other source. But, like, $40 shipping for a $120 collector's edition, I don't know. I can get people on eBay to ship bigger boxes cheaper, and I don't know why I was
paying for shipping.
Yeah,
that's why whenever I order anything from Limited Run, I like, you know, they have these like 2-month-old open pre-orders, so I'll like order 11 games all at once, and then so I get the cheaper shipping, and that's why it takes me like, you know, 2 years to get my Limited Run order.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they take forever to get it to you.
Oh yeah.
If you order them individually. So.
They're not even that bad compared to some of these other ones, man. The First Press Games is like the worst. I have stuff on order from them from like 2019.
Wow. I've never even heard of them. So what's your first limited, like, a lot of us here buy stuff from Limited Run. I think everybody here has bought something from Limited Run now that I think about it, and fairly recently too, probably. So what's your first Limited Run, and like, just your thoughts of them? Because I've heard people that are very anti-Limited Run games, and I'm just like, you know, they give me the option to have physical copies of games I wouldn't otherwise get, so I don't care if they gouge me.
Like any game coming out in a physical form, like I said, I love physical media. The very first Limited Run kind of game that I know of was actually not Limited Run. It was Retro City Rampage on the PS4. And the guy that published that game just figured out that Sony had a minimum print number of 1,000. He just paid out of his own pocket to print 1,000 copies of his game. And when the guys over at Limited Run heard about that, they're like, well, we could put out our own game the same way. And their first game was Breach and Clear on the Vita, which I have.
Yeah,
I also have the Retro City Rampage, the DX, which was the first one that ever came out. And I was really keen about it. I thought there were only going to be like a couple of those, you know, Limited Run games for that first year where like they were only going to publish their own games. And I think it was Breach and Clear, Saturday Morning RPG, and Cosmic Star Heroine. Yeah. And for like, they came out with Breach and Clear, and then for like 9 months, they didn't release the other 2 games. I figured it was over with. And then when they had the idea to basically like license the publishing rights from other indie developers, then I think that was when they kind of caught lightning in a bottle, so to speak. But I like Limited Run games.
Pretty early.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think that a lot of the companies have fallen into almost a semi-Ponzi scheme where they put out a game for pre-order and maybe they don't sell enough copies of that game to kind of cover their investment, so they list another game for pre-order, and then they use the proceeds from selling that game to fulfill the order of the first one, so they're kind of like robbing Peter to to pay Paul.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I think that's what's going on at First Press Games. Yeah. And so I'm not a big fan of that. There are companies out there like Red Art Games, which I really enjoy. They every game they just do 1,000 copies of it, and they have them in hand before they ever list them for pre-order. So you go in there, they list the game one day, and you buy it, and they just ship it out the next day.
Yeah, that's the company that's doing Aiden Chronicles Rising.
Yep, that's right. I don't know how they swung that. I guess they're like one of the few companies out there that have a good reputation in the collector community. So they were able to snag the licensing for that.
So that's a good point. They announced that they're going to do a physical copy of Aiden Chronicle Rising. Who here is going to buy that? Just curious.
Probably.
I think I have to buy it too. I platinumed the game twice digitally.
Yeah.
So I think I've got to buy a physical copy of it. Right, Rebecca?
I mean, that's kind of what we did with some of the other ones we got.
Yeah.
I'll probably buy it, even though it's basically just a spin-off of the main game, right? Which I also have not played.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's pretty much a Metroidvania, not even a particularly good or complicated. I mean, it's fine for what it is, but if you've played Metroidvanias before, this isn't going to do anything that you haven't seen before, and it's not going to do it better than what you've already played. So it's.
I finished a game yesterday exactly like that.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, I finished. What was it? Record of Lodoss War.
Yeah.
Oh.
I actually liked it. I played
Nathan, isn't that one you wanted me to write a guide on?
Yeah. No, there was a very good chance Howard was going to pay us to write a guide about that before I went back to Gamer Guides. But no, that was a very solid Metroidvania from what I played. But yeah, it didn't do anything crazy or new, but I can kind of stomach like an endless number of 7 or 8 out of 10 Metroidvanias. Like,
yeah, that's the way I felt about it. I was planning on getting the platinum trophy for it, and then I realized one of the trophies was to get like an S ranking in this archery mini game, which I hated. And I worked on it for about 5 minutes and never got above like a D rating. And I watched a YouTube video, and a guy said he spent 14 hours trying to do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, that's all right.
You could do it. I believe in you.
No, see, okay.
I know I could do it, but to me, it wasn't even worth like the extra hour I would have to put into it.
Fair warning, how much do
That's not how my mind works.
How much do you care about trophies and whatnot in games?
I used to care about them a lot, especially on the 360. I was like a big achievement hunter, and I would like play these terrible games just so I could get like all the achievements and stuff.
Hi, we do that now. I'm gonna give you fair warning here.
They're all a bunch of whores.
We're all whores, and Greg is like the whore queen. And after this podcast, you need to like delete Greg off of all your shit and never talk to him again, because he will over time insidiously get you to start trying to platinum games.
Like what he's doing now.
It hasn't worked on me.
It hasn't worked on Rebecca, but it's worked on literally everybody else.
But I don't really respect Greg, so.
Oh jeez, we're not gonna do this.
To be fair, I was a whore before I met Greg.
Yeah. Somebody rented some Barbie game, or what did you rent?
I didn't rent no Barbie game.
You rented something, Hori.
Terminator Salvation.
There's the one. Okay.
Yeah, that was a classic Xbox 360 game.
Barbie.
I mean, compared to
Are you sure?
Compared to some of the horror games today, that's like a actual good game.
Well.
Yeah, right. My name
okay,
is Mayo.
I will defend My Name is Mayo until I die.
I will defend My Name is Mayo. That's a cheeky humor game.
And I will especially defend Mr. Massagey. And speaking of which, I will not defend that one.
Little House on the Prairie.
I will not defend that one at all. I did end up buying both limited run versions of those Green Lava Studios games. So,
even I skipped on those.
I skipped on those too, Nathan.
You guys have no taste. That's all it is. I do feel bad.
Yeah.
Go on.
I do think I was one of maybe the first 100 people on the Xbox 360 to have over 100,000 gamer score.
Man, I was 360 was my console of choice 2 generations ago, and I think I cracked 40,000. I just didn't have the money or the time to spend on all that. I was in college when the Xbox 360 was new, and not making a whole lot of money. So that's actually how I got started writing guides. Is I'd have to really, really enjoy the few games I bought. Like Fallout 3 was one of the ones I remember buying new, and I'm like, you know what? I played this game so much, I know so much about it, I'm just going to write a guide. I was like, after I got done with that, I was like, I could do this for, like, all the games I have that I know a lot about, and that's where it all started.
Hell,
That's
you
pretty
probably
awesome.
should have dropped out of college and...
I probably should have. I'd have been a couple years ahead. Oh, well.
Yeah, the 360 came out right after, the year after I graduated from college, and so I was already in graduate school with a stipend, and I had disposable income for the first time ever, so I kind of went crazy.
See if it will let you go through here. This is where we need to go.
No, I don't get a prompt.
Ah.
I mean, we had some money. I think I ended up with like 80 Xbox 360 games, which compared to my previous collections, like, y'all are gonna laugh, but it's okay. I'm at peace with this. I think I own like a total of 30 some PlayStation 2 games. I mean, okay. I just did not have, and I bought a lot of these PS2 games recently. Like when I had the money, I went back and bought like Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance 2. This was before they re-released them, and you know, Dark Alliance 2, I remember, I liked playing that with Rebecca, or the first one, I mean, and we went to go get the second one. We saw it at GameStop. They had it used for like $20-25, and I was like, that's a lot of money for a used game. Like, I'd try to wait for games to go, you know, 10, 15. And I was like, I'm not going to spend that kind of money on this. And of course, I find out that they printed like 3 copies of it. And, you know, then the price is like $50. I'm like, well, that's just not happening. So, a lot of games I couldn't buy back at the time. Like, I saw your Xenosaga collection. I was like, when you had Xenosaga 3. I just saw the edge of it. And I'm like, yeah, damn.
Yeah,
a lot of games I wish I could have bought, and I just never did.
Yeah, the Xenosaga games, the first one I bought when I was in college, and I played like 80% of the way through it. Mm-hmm. And then maybe I got stuck or something. I need to go back and finish it. But Xenosaga 2 and 3, I picked up from this guy, I guess it was 2 years ago. I basically bought his entire collection from him, and those were in there. And I need to get to them, but like I said, I need to play Xenosaga 1 first, and hell, man, I don't know when it's going to show up because it's going to get picked at random. It might be 20 years from now. I don't know.
See, I bought the first 2 Xenosagas when I was in college because those ones did get cheap. And like, I saw Xenosaga 3 in like the GameStop used section. I was just like, because I played through most of the first one, and I can't remember what I got sidetracked from. I think I might have gotten sidetracked by Dragon Quest VIII, honestly. Once I played that, it just consumed me for a while. And I just never went back to it. And like a lot of these games, like some of the Shadow Hearts games, I think the third one, is that A New World or whatever? I thought there was one after Covenant.
Yeah, there is. It's, hold on, walk over there and look. It's Shadow Hearts from the New World.
Okay, yeah. I just like, there are a lot of these games that I just never bought, and then, you know, now you look at the prices and you get a little sick. You're like, I had that thing in my hand with like a used sticker on it for like $7.99.
Yeah, like Rule of Rose, Haunting Ground.
I also kind of regret, remember we worked on that Metroidvania Time Spinner?
Yeah.
And I had that unlimited run. I remember being like, I liked the game, but I didn't love it. And now I kind of just buy everything that I even remotely am interested in when it comes to the limited run. And I'm like, I wish I would have bought Time Spinner. I have no good reason why I didn't.
I missed Time Spinner when it came out on limited run games. It just didn't look good to me. I don't know what, you know, every time they announce a game, I look up on Metacritic and everything. And for some reason, I was turned off with Time Spinner. And then later, like a year after it came out and it was $100 or whatever, it was on some list of like the top 10 Metroidvanias you have to play.
It's not the top 10 Metroidvanias, but it is a pretty solid Metroidvania.
It might be on the top 10 of Metroidvanias you've never played.
Maybe it was.
Maybe.
I don't remember, but
that are good.
I remembered that, like, I was like, doesn't freaking Limited Run Games have a deal with like Best Buy? I'll just check my local Best Buy, and I went in, and they had like 40 copies of it.
Oh, jeez.
Just sitting there for like $29.99, and so I picked up a copy. And I was like, oh, I should go back and just to pick them all up and flip them. And then I was like, that'd be like kind of a jerk thing to do. So
yeah, I mean, I kind of wish you did, because it's like, hey, get offer me a podcast deal.
Yeah,
because I kind of wish I had it now. Just it's a good like what 7 out of 10 you'd say, Greg?
Yeah,
like,
no, it's fun. I got a copy, an autographed copy of it from the developer.
What?
Bodie. Yeah.
Why did they give you an autographed copy?
I chatted with him when he was making it on streams. And,
right.
I was supposed to put a guide up on his website for it. That never ended up happening.
So you robbed him, is what you're saying?
No, I didn't say I robbed him.
Stole from the dude. That's what I'm hearing. Rebecca, what do you think?
Yeah, 100%.
That was that. I made a good GameFAQs post. I wrote a review for that, and somebody said I was homophobe because of my review.
The story in it was kind of cringe. Some of the like.
Yeah, I was complaining about how they were shoehorning the LGBTQ. I can't.
Well, no, there's just like one bad part of the game where basically they interrupt a dialogue between characters to basically give you like a public relations message. This is how you use pronouns. It's like, I'm fine. My boss is a trans person. It's not like I'm opposed to them, but this is not what I really need in the middle of a Metroidvania game. Like, because it just broke the entire flow of the conversation, and like just really weird fourth wall breaking. I don't know why that was in there to this day. Just really awkward stuff.
Bodie actually didn't write the story for it.
No, I know he offloaded it to some people. I can't remember. They used to have a website. I remember going to their website to look at what they did, and basically it was nothing. So, just very, very weird. Like, the story is generally good. I like the characters, and they decided to interrupt this one character dialogue for that, and it's like, okay, that's really weird and out there. And of course, it didn't help that they decided to do this. Like, this wasn't during the Gamergate stuff, but this is like on the tail end of it, so of course, people blew it up beyond what it actually was. I mean, it was a little bit of a nuisance, but like, if you're so annoyed that you can't skip over a few lines of dialogue to enjoy a game, then you're kind of just hurting your own. Well, at that point, it's not about the game. You're getting angry at the political issue, and that's affecting your ability to enjoy an otherwise pretty good game. So, did you play Time Spinner yet?
Yeah, I did play it. I did, and I finished it.
Did it come up
I don't
randomly,
remember
or
much
did
of what
you
you're talking
choose
about. No, it was randomly selected for me. It's strange.
The RNG device.
It's just strange. Sometimes things will just like, you'll play like the new hot thing. I think it was only in the backlog about a month before I played it. But it was good. I don't really remember much about the story. I probably was just like clicking through the dialogue as fast as I could. Normally I'm big into the story, but that one didn't stick with me much. I don't remember caring for the story too much. But yeah, I thought it was like a 7 or an 8 kind of Metroidvania. I thought it was pretty decent.
I can't. No, I don't want to give any spoilers on this, even if I am misremembering and just guessing and end up guessing correctly. So you mentioned. Oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, go. No. I played it right after like Iconoclasts.
I've never played that yet.
Yeah,
which was another Metroidvania, and I did not like that game. I don't know what it is. It was like everything about it should have just suited me perfectly, and it just did not sit well with me. I found it a real struggle to play, and I don't really. It's just like when you meet somebody and they just rub you the wrong way, and you're like, I don't like that person, and I don't know why. Iconoclast was like that. So I think maybe because I played that shortly before Time Spinner, that Time Spinner maybe got a little bit of a better score from me, because it was more refreshing after having to slog through Iconoclasts.
Iconoclast.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What were you going to say?
Iconoclast is the game with like the blonde girl that I think she fights with a wrench, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure I remember this correctly.
There are these mechanics where you have to jump. There are like bolts built into the terrain and stuff. And she, instead of having like a double jump, she can like latch onto the bolt and like swing and kind of like bounce herself from bolt to bolt. And that's fine, but there's also like these bolt mechanics where you have to like tighten the bolts and you have to loosen the bolts. And I felt like it was he had this idea, or the developer, I think it was made by one guy. He had the idea of like using this wrench on bolts, and then he just like
made a game around
sitting
it.
on the toilet, and he's like, I got to think of every single thing I could possibly do with a wrench.
I can do with a bolt, with a wrench.
Yeah, so like every time you had to open a door, like a locked door, it was like you have to get the orange crystal for the wrench to open the orange doors. And every time you went through an orange door, you'd have to like ratchet the wrench to open the door. So like you go to the door and you have to tap like the Y button like 15 times.
Ugh.
And you go like to the purple door and you have to tap it. And I remember like thinking like I've spent like 10% of my time playing this game like tapping this button for the wrench for no reason.
That's funny because one of my modern pet peeves when it comes to gaming is like these games want you to like hold down the X button to open a chest or open a door or just do some basic function of the game. And it's like, why am I holding this down? Like I could just press the button. Like I've got other shit to play. Let's expedite this process a little bit. Like,
well, I mean, you're not wrong. Like I just said, I played Deedlit and Wonder Labyrinth, and the way to switch your spells in that game is like you hold down the button you use to cast the spells, which is the square button. I played it on PS4.
Oh, come on. We have like shoulder buttons and a D-pad.
There were like 7 buttons on the controller that were not used. Like, why?
That extra
why do that? Yeah.
Because I played the one of the early versions of the game on Steam, so I haven't played the PlayStation one. So that might actually end up annoying me a lot. There's so many things I was going to say. One thing is I have to be a little bit of a nerd here, but you talking about like why? I know, but no, different kind of nerd, history nerd. You were talking about how Iconoclast bothered you. Reminded me of the story. I can't remember who relates. It might have been Plutarch in a Roman life. Some prominent Roman got a divorce from his wife, and Plutarch decides to tell a story about some other prominent Roman in the past who got divorced from his wife, and all his friends were like, and I remember, they're a little bit misogynistic, but this is what Plutarch wrote. His friends were bugging him like, you know, why'd you get rid of your wife? Isn't she pretty? Isn't she fertile? Isn't she, you know, doesn't she have all these good wifely qualities? And eventually the guy got sick of it, and he takes off his shoe, and he's like, look at this shoe. Isn't it well made? Isn't it sharp? Isn't it, you know, good looking, nice shoe? But none of you can tell me where this shoe pinches my foot.
Yeah.
And so, that just reminded me of that analogy. Sorry, I do that. I got a history minor, so I have to go off on diversions.
You don't have
justify
to.
The fact that
I gotta justify the degree I got, and this is the only way that I ever apply it.
Hey, don't feel bad. I also had a history minor.
Well, see, there we go.
But his major was art.
Well, no, it wasn't art. It was just a generic art degree. I switched it from art, so it's actually I do not have a.
I said it was art. I didn't say.
Well, yeah, but everything that's not a science is an art. Oh, that's not really narrowing it down.
Oh no, I meant like art as in the art.
No, I do not have a degree in art. To have a degree in art, you have to have a degree in fine arts, which is different from just having a degree in art.
You just have a nothing degree.
I have a nothing degree, basically, with minors in philosophy and history. So basically nothing degree with 2 seasonings of useless on top. But no, like, we got into this conversation with Greg. Greg's a little bit angry at everyone with a college degree because he got passed over for a job he didn't need or really want for a company that's now dead and didn't appreciate him because he didn't have a college degree.
You can tell him.
I don't want to go on a whole GameFAQs rant, but was a community manager. He didn't get a community manager job at GameFAQs because they wanted someone with a degree to manage a forum about video games.
Oof.
Which, yes, to be fair, that is not a job you need a degree for. But
it's all good because in retrospect they said they absolutely should should have went with me.
What's your name, stranger?
I mean, it's not like it would have saved the site from its own, you know, self-inflicted wounds, but...
Oh, man. Yeah, I probably couldn't have helped.
So Greg's got that,
I like to feel like I could have helped.
Greg's got that
Yeah,
army boy
probably
view
would've.
of, we don't need college degrees anyways.
Well, I am where I am without a degree, so...
I'm not saying you can't be, but I am saying in education... I view education as an inherently useful thing, even if you get, yes, a degree in basket weaving. I think, well, one, it shows people that you can actually stick through a degree program, which is...
That's mainly what people want to see, from my experience.
Yeah, that you can put up with nonsense long enough to get a degree. Which is kind of what the military, 4 years of the military proves. Okay, you put up with Sarge for 4 years, I guess that's... I mean, let's be honest, that's basically the real, takeaway from being in the military 4 years or going to college for 4 years. But I don't know, I found taking a lot of those classes to be very enriching and made me a better thinker, exposed me to more literature than I otherwise would have been. I think it's a good thing, a net positive.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm an educator, so and I definitely spent my fair amount of time in college, so I agree with you on that.
You got a graduate degree. You care to say what you ended up getting a major in, or master's in?
Sure. Well, I don't have a master's. I have a PhD, but yeah, I don't want to dox myself. I have a PhD in neuroscience, and I do Alzheimer's research.
Oh wow! So definitely the most accomplished person that is on this podcast, or that we probably ever. No, dude. Don't. We're not being too kind. It's a low bar.
It's a low bar.
But you step over it pretty comfortably, so mad props for getting a useful degree.
But it's only a bachelor's.
I was going to get a master's in history, but I applied to some grant program to basically work on campus, and that would have given me a scholarship, and I ended up not being one of the 2 people chosen to do it, so I was like, well, I don't have the money to pay for this, so guess that's the end of my education, and so far it has been, but, you know, if I ever stepped into money, I'd like to go back and get it, spend more money on this. Let's be fair, if I can spend hundreds of dollars on big box PC games and thousands of dollars on Warhammer Mini Plastic, I think a useless piece of paper saying you know a little bit more about history is, in the grand scheme of things, not a bigger waste than that.
It's definitely not. If you could keep it in a reasonable amount, there's plenty of people that I know that have, $200,000, $300,000 worth of student loan debt from graduate school, and they, are working at Starbucks.
Well, see, I don't have any student loan debt because they started a program here in Tennessee called the Hope Scholarship, where basically they started a state gambling program, and they sold it to voters by saying, we will use the profits from this to pay for people from Tennessee to go to college, and I benefited from that. I got $20,000 of. I didn't go to a big, huge, prestigious college. I went to Austin P up here, which 20,000 is about enough to cover a 4-year degree. Back 17 years ago.
They put up a pretty good fight last weekend. I watched part of the football game.
Oh, See, I didn't follow the football back when I went there. I'm not a big fan of college athletics. I'm like, get to the pros and then we'll talk. Speaking of which, my Packers are drumming the Bears, 24-7. So
that's kind of how I am. I don't really following pros is enough. College, too much.
Yeah,
I'm all about the college around here.
Yeah. I understand because I went to college here in northern Tennessee, and we had people from Kentucky, so. You had some people that would be big fans of the Volunteers and people that were huge UK fans, and oh man. And I was just sitting there, they'd argue, they'd do their little college football shenanigans, and I'd be like, Packers doing okay right now. I don't have anything to contribute. So, on that front. You were talking about, though, going through your game collection, you kept mentioning shmup, right? You big shmup fan?
Yes. I'm a huge shmup fan.
So how did you?
He's the biggest shoot 'em up fan.
Oh, definitely.
All of us.
I'm an RPG guy, so a lot of that. a lot of that Twitch-based action kind of lost on me.
Did I hear shmup?
You heard shmup.
Yeah, there. You might have to duke it out with
Yeah, you
Jared
can.
on the
You
shoot 'em
can.
up.
I'm sure
Determined
he's
who's a
much
shmup
bigger,
leader.
Shmup fan than I am.
Jared, I went and bought a shoot 'em up based purely on RNG's videos called what was it, Geico Shooting King?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that last week, I think.
Yeah.
But now he's mentioning it, for the perspective of the interested party.
Yeah, there's a long-standing and long existing website called Shmups Forum, and used to be just shmups.com, but I think that's defunct now, and the forum's the only thing that remains. But they have done a yearly vote on the top 25 best shmups of all time. That's been going on for like almost 30 years, and it's the guy that has run it has kept like meticulous statistics about who voted for the same thing in the same position every year. So the way it works is everyone votes their top 10 favorite shmups of all time. No, sorry, their top 25 favorite shmups of all time, and then 10 honorable mentions. And then they get to award a certain number of points to each shmup that they decide. And he tabulates all this and calculates it all, and then lists like every game that's ever made it onto the top 25 and every game that's ever been an honorable mention, and the games that were top 25 games that have dropped down to the honorable mentions, and so on and so forth. And Geico Shooting King is like one of the games that has managed to stay on the top 25. It's been on there over like 15 times in the last 30 years. And it's pretty much the only game on that list that's like under $100 that isn't Ikaruga.
Yep, a lot of obscure Japanese imports, I'm guessing, with this genre.
It's a lot,
yeah.
and even a lot of games that like don't even, they never received any port whatsoever. It's like you have the arcade PCB or you emulate it or nothing.
Ah.
So
I have Geico Shooting King.
it's good. It's a good game.
I don't think I've ever actually played it, but I have it. I just recently bought I imported the physicals of the Psycho collections from PlayAsia.
So yeah, did you get the PS4 versions?
Yeah.
So I just imported those as well after being extremely disappointed in the Switch versions with their input delay. So I'm hoping these are better. I had the PCB of Strikers 1945 2, which I was able to like 1 credit clear on the hardest difficulty on the PCB.
Not to brag, but
yeah, I can't even beat it on monkey level on the Switch, which is like the bottom, because the bullets are so fast, like you die before you see the bullets actually fire on the screen. There's so much input delay. So I'm hoping the PS4 version's better.
Well, I kind of have an ulterior motive to importing them because they have a separate trophy list compared to the PSN releases.
Yeah.
See, this is what'll happen if you talk to Greg too long. Just don't do it. Like, cut ties once this is over, or otherwise you'd be like, how many trophy lists does this visual novel have?
Yeah, but with his system, he can't, not unless he spends points. Speaking of visual novels, you're about to do Steins Gate for the first time, right?
I'm playing it now. I'm like 2.5 hours into it, and like I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I'm struggling hard on it.
Oh, you gotta make it till chapter 5. You've gotta.
That's what everyone says. You have to make it chapter 5. So I'm pushing. I've promised myself I'll play at least 35 to 45 minutes every day. No matter what, to make it through it. I'm doing it for the public because I've had so many good recommendations, and I've played a fair number of visual novels, and I'd say I'm actually kind of a fan of the genre, but it's hard because I have like a 4-month-old baby who keeps me up at night, and it's grant writing season at work, so when I have to read like 300 to 500 pages of scholarly journals every week, it's tough to come home and plow through a visual novel.
It doesn't help, that's for sure.
Here I
Yeah,
am
so,
whining.
like-
I'm like, oh, I have to work on this video game, and I don't have time for other video games I want to play for fun. He's like, I have to save people's lives and read hundreds of pages a week.
I try.
I'm just,
But yeah, no, it's right now it's just kind of in the part where I'm just like learning about the characters. And at first, like the first hour, I didn't get that the main character was like basically like full of shit.
pretending to be a mad yeah.
Yeah, I was
He's
just
got,
like,
he's got mental problems for sure.
I was like, is this guy just like autistic?
Yeah, they don't spell things out for you, but it's,
And
yeah,
so-
yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I couldn't figure out what was happening at first, and like, I was like, was there a game? Is this a sequel? And I don't know what's going on. And yeah, now that I got that it's like very tongue in cheek and sort of campy, I'm starting to enjoy it a little bit more. And he's just gotten to the point. No spoilers. I mean, if 2.5 hours into a 30-hour long visual novel, I don't know if you consider this a spoiler, but he's just starting to experiment with the microwave.
Yeah. The
So,
phone wave,
yeah.
name subject to change.
Yeah, subject to change.
It's always subject
He
to
always
change.
writes that in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you do have a good impression of it over the long term. That's one of the games that Greg convinced me to buy. He kept hyping it, and eventually I saw it for sale for, I think it was literally $3 on the PS3 like 5 years ago. So I was like, yeah, you know what? If Greg's full of shit, it's $3. You know, it's what he wasted a hamburger, and I fell in love with it, and it would break my heart if you said anything bad about Steins Gate. I couldn't bear it. So I think I'm a bigger fan of Steins Gate now than Greg is. So
I mean, like, I've heard nothing but like high praise for it, and Greg, I mean, I looked through his trophy list because it's so wildly impressive, and we have a lot of similar taste in games, so I'm sure there's something there. I just have to get into it a little bit more. I've been playing it. I've also been playing Beyond Two Souls. Which, by the way, was like the game that had been in my backlog longer than any other game. I bought it brand new on the PS3 when it came out, and it just now got picked for me to play. Like, I took it out of the wrapper.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love it.
But it's, you know, it's heavy. It's a Aquatic Dreams game, so it's very like narrative based. And I typically don't play like two heavy narrative based games simultaneously, and so playing those at the same time, like back to back.
yeah, it'd be hard to keep the story straight.
And it's kind of just like, all right, guys, like, I've been just listening to people talk or reading for 5 hours straight now. Like, I want to press
It's
some
like
buttons.
you're not even a gamer anymore.
Yeah.
You're just enjoying books,
Yeah, and
which is
so,
kind of, I always found was kind of the appeal to being a visual novel fan. But two at once, it's a little.
it's a bit
heavy.
much.
I mean,
And
they're.
I'm playing
Okay.
I'm playing it on the Switch, so like I lay down on the couch in the evening while my wife watches like RuPaul's Drag Race, and I like try to not fall asleep, and so it's but like I said, I'm getting into it, and I'm sure it's going to pick up. I've heard multiple people say Chapter 5 is where it really gets good. So
Yeah, basically you're just investing in all the characters right now, and you're learning all their quirks. And the game, I mean, it's throwing some things at you that if you give it a second playthrough, you'll appreciate the first few chapters more. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but it's an investment that pays off with all these characters and the stuff that happens later on in the game. So, which is fairly common for visual novels, but a lot of them don't really pull it off. All those character building moments. Sometimes it feels like they just wasted your time, but Steins Gate's one of the ones that actually does it really well, in my opinion. I think one of the benefits of playing visual novels, like, we're not all 100% awake all the time. Like, you know, you're awake, you play your action games, you're, you know, paying attention. You've got the ability to focus and concentrate, and then, you know, sometimes you're getting towards the end of your sleep schedule, and you're like, yeah, I want to do something, but I don't want to really, I can't do a perfect counter in Elden Ring right now, so yeah, I'm gonna play a visual novel or some other game that I know well enough that I can just grind through. And, yeah, you got your tired games, you've got your awake games.
yeah, you're not wrong about that.
So, unfortunately, it does mean I go to sleep playing visual novels a lot. Back to the shmup thing, though. Like, do you remember what the first shmup you played, and Like, where was it? An arcade machine somewhere?
I think it had to have been Galaga.
Oh,
Or
okay,
Galaga is the more pretentious of us would say.
Galaga.
Yeah, I hate it. I can't make myself do it. I know it's
Ninja
wrong.
Gaiden.
Ninja Gaiden.
I would say,
it had to have been Galaga.
I would probably say like mine was probably like Gradius or something like that on the SNES or something like that.
Just all these names I've heard of.
Yeah, it was definitely. I think the first big one that I really liked was Raiden on the in the arcade. I had a local arcade that was no joke across the street from my school, and we would all go over there and like kind of kill about 20 minutes waiting for our parents to pick us up in the afternoons. And they had a Raiden cabinet right when you walked in, and that game's brutal. It would just like I would not eat lunch and save my lunch money, and I think I could like blow through all my lunch money in about 5 minutes. It was a
feeding this machine quarters.
Yeah, and it was ruthless. But yeah, I've loved them ever since I was like a kid. You kind of get into this flow state almost when you're playing, where you're not really, it's not like in the commercials where you see someone like all amped up and
no, you'll go like, stone cold silence and your pupils dilate and you stop blinking. Yeah,
it's just this flow state, and I find that to be usually pretty relaxing, and so I think that's kind of what I like about it. Excuse me. And it's still really just the only genre out there that's like a real pure form of gaming to me.
Yeah. It makes sense. I can perform well at games like that. I put them in the kind of the same category as platformers, games where you actually have to, figure things out by trial and error and kind of get into the flow of things, like you said. But I'm kind of a spaz, and I end up going through a period of great anger before I hit the flow stage, so kind of don't like to amp myself up like that anymore. It's one of the reasons why I'm not a huge fan of the 8-bit, 16-bit era. It's entirely a me thing. My perspective on it is just like, I was more of a fan of the more narrative games, RPGs, stuff like that, so it's kind of not sad to see platformers give way to other genres.
We call that weakness.
I'm fine.
All the time.
Yeah, Jared's our platformer guy. Greg doesn't have a genre; he just plays everything. So
yeah, it's probably fair.
I pretty much play everything.
Greg's that horror.
We're all horrors, Jared. We're all horrors.
Horror.
Oh, horror guy. Well, yeah. But that's just because nobody else is really big on horror.
To be fair, I have a shit ton of horror walkthroughs and guides.
I'm not saying you're not the horror guy, Greg. I'm saying that.
Well, if I had to claim something, it would be Castlevania.
You can have Castlevania.
Well, it would trump horror, wouldn't it?
Would it? No. One's a whole genre.
I got 20 some odd Castlevania guides.
Yeah, you did write about a lot of Castlevania. So, Greg, why don't you, I want to hear you two talk about your collection versus his collection, because Greg, what, you aspire to buy all the, SNES games?
Oh, well, that's my current goal, is to get a complete SNES collection, but that's, I don't know if that's a pipe dream. I mean, it can happen eventually, I think.
You can give it enough time. Enough shattered dreams of your children.
Yeah, no college funds and savings, yeah.
You better start going to extracurricular activities, kids, because you're going to need those applications to be this stellar. Oh, and by the way, you better learn how to drive yourself, because Greg's too busy playing games. Thank you.
If Daddy ever dies, here's his complete in box Earthbound.
You can give it to me for $150.
Yeah, I mean, I got a bunch of the big hitters on SNES, but there's a bunch I don't have. Namely, I guess top 3 would be Kagane.
Do you know what happened to August?
Final Fight Guy, and what's that the flying one? I can't.
Arrow Wings?
Arrow Fighters.
Arrow Fighters, yeah.
That's it.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Aero
those are
Fighters
probably
is
the-
called
the
Sonic
biggest
Wings
one
in
I don't
Japan.
have.
So,
Well, each one of those is several $1,000s.
You can get Hagane loose for like 900.
oh,
Yeah, here's the other thing about my collection. They're all complete in box.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem on Hagane
Yeah.
because all box copies are accounted for.
oof.
Oh, yeah, so... Yikes. We're going the wrong way.
In case you guys didn't know, Hagane was a Blockbuster exclusive rental copy.
Ah,
So the only way to get a box for it is to like find a Blockbuster somewhere that like never put the game out on the shelf, and hope they didn't blow or throw away the box when they had it.
jeez.
Or
So-
just buy a ridiculously overpriced one from eBay.
Yeah, you can do
They
that.
They do show up every now and again.
They show up. I have a friend who's a collector from Dubai, and he has a complete sealed and boxed Super Nintendo set. And he's been doing the conventions around the United States. He's been selling off all his loose copies of games and his extra boxes. So he had like a completely boxed Super Nintendo set. That wasn't good enough. He wanted sealed and now graded.
Oh, Jesus. He's,
Yeah.
hardcore.
And so he was selling off his like loose copies and his old boxes that weren't good enough. And I saw him sell a box copy of Hagane at the most recent convention I went to, the Southeast Game Exchange.
How much did I go for?
I think he, this one didn't have the Blockbuster stickers on it, so it never got put out like for rental. I think he sold it for like $5,500 or something like that.
Jeez. A little bit beyond my price range. My collecting goals
Yeah.
are basically tickle that nostalgia button. Like, I have to kind of be sentimentally attached to the game in some way for me to wanna buy it. That's gonna save me a lot of money and space in the long run, fortunately. But
Yeah, because we have a tiny house.
tiny house, little tiny house.
They don't make big houses in Tennessee unless
For
you
some
are
reason,
multi-millionaire.
Yeah, but I don't know why. What's your gaming goal, James? Like collecting wise.
I don't really necessarily have like a final goal. I kind of like feel that I'm almost getting to the point where I like won't live long enough to play the rest of these games.
Oh, having a bit of an existential crisis.
Yeah,
You know,
so
at
I have
some
like
point, if you do want to finish them off, you're going
Greg.
to have to quit adding.
you're not wrong. I am.
Oh,
Gonna,
I thought you were going to try
plan
to
on
scam
retiring.
games from him.
No, I plan on
was not
retiring in
doing
like
that.
the next 10 years, so that'll leave me like 30 years or so of just free time to play. But I have a wish list of all the stuff I want that I kind of like split into high priority and middle priority and low priority. I would like to finish off all the stuff on that list. I've noticed that it's split into like modern stuff that, you know, is releasing, you know, daily, and it's split into retro stuff that I've wanted forever. I've noticed that the modern stuff is like, the lists are getting really short. There's not as much stuff coming out anymore that really interests me. And my like high priority new stuff, it used to have about 50 games I was looking for in it, and it's down to like 6 games now. And so I'm feeling is like things start to get more and more digital over time, and maybe physical media sort of transitions out, that there'll be fewer games to buy, and I can finally like catch up on stuff. But as for like finishing off a set or something like that, I'm not necessarily actively trying to do that. The closest thing I would be doing that on is like the original NES, where I'll pick up games that I really am not interested in just because they're missing from the set. But like I don't do that on the Super Nintendo. I don't do that really on any other consoles other than the NES. It's just, like I said, it takes up a lot of room, and
Yeah.
honestly, it thins out my enormous backlog to the point where, you know, this will happen occasionally about once every year or two, where I'll just have like 5 or 6 terrible games that are randomly picked for me to play in a row, and I get like, you're talking about going to like an existential crisis. I'll have like a general malaise like come over my whole body. I'll get almost depressed because it's just, you're playing like horrible games over and over again. So I have to curate kind of what I add to the backlog, because I'm going to play these games come hell or high water. You know, I'm not going to put like, you know, RBI Baseball 4 on the shelf and think like, I'll never play that because I'll have to play it one day.
I do all the time.
Oh yeah, but see, Greg has no compulsion of playing his games.
I feel great knowing I don't have to play crap games.
Oh man.
See, I just like,
it's freeing.
I can't imagine buying something that I had no intention of ever playing. Like, I mean, buying a physical copy of a game that I don't tend to open, that's one thing. I'll get the digital copy if I want to keep it in the box, right? So I'm not talking about that, but buying a game that I just like, buying an old Call of Duty game because I want to complete a collection, I'm never going to play a Call of Duty game. Like, I don't know. I guess that's what sets me apart from, like, Greg.
So, like, I will, you know, it's sort of a strange thing. I guess it was, the last time I did this was in 2020. I bought a collection, like, paid like $15,000 to buy this collection off this guy with the purpose of, like, picking out the stuff I wanted, and then I was going to, like, sell or trade the duplicates that I had and try to, like, recoup most of my money. It wasn't like I spent $15,000. It was like I spent $2,000 and I, you know,
then you got a bunch of stuff to
$13,000 back.
Yeah.
You know, and so in this case, I ended up. That's actually about what happened. I spent $15,000, and I think I kept about $7,000 worth of stuff that I paid essentially $2,000 for, and I sold the rest at a convention that were my duplicates just to, you know, subsidize myself, my crippling video game addiction. And but you know, as I'm going through like looking at these games, and I see stuff like a Fisher-Price game.
I love it.
Like I see a Fisher-Price game, and I'm like, oh man, do I want to add that to my collection to play? And then I'll look it up, and it's like, oh, it's worth $30. And I think to myself, like, no one in their right mind is going to pay $30 for this Fisher-Price game. Like, if I take it to a convention, it's just going to sit there on the table. No one's going to want it. No one's going to do anything with it. It's only rare for rarity's sake.
Greg's going to come and do something with it.
Yeah, so, you know, sometimes I'll leave stuff like that in the collection because, you know, maybe I can, if it comes up randomly to play, I can knock it out in 5 minutes. Because believe it or not, I can spell a lot of 3-letter words, so it'll be a quick play. And sometimes they can be like conversation pieces. Because really, the purpose of this collection is when other people come down here, and just like you guys did, you see things in it, and you're like, oh, I want to talk about that. You know, people will come in and they'll say, oh, I played this game when I was a kid, and you were like a little wizard in a like a castle, and you had to find all these secrets, and you know, you say like, oh, was it Milon's Secret Castle? And they go, yeah, that's the name of it. And you pull it out and show it to them, and you see like their eyes light up.
Yeah.
So that's really what makes it all worth it.
Yeah, some of that stuff is pure nostalgia. Like I remember playing Mario when Mario's Missing.
Oh, such a terrible game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not good. Very fond memories of it.
I remember playing some Super Nintendo Mario game where you had to like, there was like time travel and you're looking for like historical
Mario's Time
stuff.
Machine.
Yeah, it was god awful.
Hotel Mario.
Never played that. I didn't suffer any of those early CD consoles, fortunately.
Hotel Mario on the CDI is, a lot of people will say it's like one of the best games on that system. It is not a good game. It may be one of the best on the CDI, but that game's still like a solid 4 out of 10.
Again, low bar.
Yeah,
especially with the CDI.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who's a huge CDI game collector or console collector. He like collects prototypes and stuff for the system.
I noticed you didn't say fan.
Well, I almost did. He's a fan of the hardware, but
okay.
Here's how crazy and esoteric some of these collectors get. So there was a Tokyo car show where you know, they were debuting these new cars that came out, and there was a Toyota station wagon that was like a prototype. It never came to fruition. It was never manufactured, but its claim to fame was that it had a built-in CDI in it. And the CDI wasn't a console that was like plugged into the AV cables. It was, the motherboard was like
just ran off the engine fumes.
Yeah, basically it ran off the engine fumes. And so, according to my friend, that is a console. And since he wanted to collect every single CDI console, he went to Japan and bid in an auction to purchase that prototype vehicle from Toyota to have that console.
Wow.
I think your friends are crazier than mine.
That's next level.
Nathan, I am very
low bar, Greg. Low bar.
Very low bar. I'm good with my money.
Comparatively, yeah.
My kids eat every day.
His kids were eating ramen, but hey, it was the good stuff from Japan, so.
At least once every day. Most days. Not all of them.
Okay, well, that brings up a question. Like, Greg, I want to know, when you're talking about buying these SNES games, do you mean like the rare, like, I remember there was I think an NES game they made for, like, specifically for a tournament that they had.
Those are...
So you're not gonna, like, it had to have like an actual
Nintendo
retail release
cartridge.
Yeah.
No, they got a couple of those on the SNES as well.
Yeah, the Star Fox Championship cartridge.
The Donkey Kong one, and I know they have to be like retail, like within my purchasing power.
All right, I'm just wondering how far down the rabbit hole.
I'm not a rich man.
Yeah. Those are like I consider those like outside of the like the system list. So, like I have a full Vectrex set, but there are two games where I mentioned in my collection video that. Like one was a giveaway that a liquor store in Boston had printed that they gave away for like a Christmas present to their employees. Like I wouldn't consider that part of the collection because it was never sold in stores. You know, it's a novelty. So it's like kind of saying like I want to collect every Star Wars movie, and then someone's like, oh well, there's a version of the Star Wars Christmas special that was. Only aired in the lobby of the Lucas building, and the credits are in blue instead of yellow, you know, and so like, is that really part of it? Kind of, but not really.
So here's a question, because there's a lot of, a lot of nerds like us that are, oh, I don't see a prompt. Hold on. There are a lot of nerds like us who are quickly approaching middle age and all the crises that come with that, and, there's a guy on YouTube, really cool dude from his videos. 8-Bit Guy, anyone watch his stuff?
Yeah, I know him.
He started to, he goes to conventions, so did you ever bump into him?
I've never bumped into 8-Bit Guy at a convention, but I feel like I've bumped into everybody else.
He made a couple of games, I think, PC games, retro PC games, I think Planet X something.
The pet ski robots and... Attack of the Pet Ski Robots, that's it, yeah.
And, like, so now, like... And he printed them out really well, too. They've got their own boxes and all the cool stuff on ancient hardware, and... It's pretty cool, but do we count that, like, now do you have to own that game, like Planet X, X3, or whatever it's called, to own, like, the complete Commodore 64 collection? Because, I mean, I think he has versions that run on that stuff, like... How does that count when it comes to a collector?
They still release Genesis games, and
didn't they release a Jaguar game not too long ago? Or am I?
They release Jaguar games all the flipping time. So that really comes down to the collector and their preference. I have this debate with a friend of mine all the time, and he's like under the opinion that everything that is ever released for the console ever till the end of eternity, you have to have the complete collection. The general consensus is that to be part of the collection and not be considered like a homebrew or something like that is that the game had to have been released and sold at retail, or like basically generally accessible, like maybe it was mail order, but it wasn't just advertised in like one magazine or something. And it has to have been released during a time period where the console was still sold in stores.
Yeah, I mean, I get
way more
I get the argument, but there are a lot of games that come out well after a console stops being like even things you consider part of the like the Nintendo, you know, the 700 original Nintendo games. Like I think they're still releasing NES games in 1995.
Their last NES game that was ever released came out at the end of 1994.
Oh, okay.
And it came out 2 months before they discontinued manufacturing the NES.
Oh, so they're still manufacturing. Okay.
They're still manufacturing it. Yep. The NES was manufactured like almost 4 years into the Super Nintendo life cycle.
Because I want to say like some of these more modern consoles, like the PlayStation 4, it's still getting games, and the only reason that I can see that it's still being produced is just because they can't make enough PlayStation 5s for demand. So I mean, and I think the PS3 was pretty much the same way. Like that thing was on the market, it got cheap, and then boom, it was gone everywhere because they stopped manufacturing. But PS3 games still came out for a while after that.
Well, it's. I mean, there's some. I mean, that's true. There are some caveats to that, but one of the big things is that generally the companies that manufacture the systems also manufacture the games. Like you can't put out a PS4 game without having Sony approve it and press the disc. So we know all the games that are approved for the PS4.
Yeah.
You know, the same thing with like the NES, like all those had to get the Nintendo seal of approval, or they had to be an unlicensed game, like the Tengen games or something like that. Oh yeah,
some of those Tengen games are great though.
Well, in the case of the NES, they actually had to get like actual chips, right, from like the lockout chips and stuff like that. They had to get actual hardware from Nintendo.
They get around some of them.
Yeah, well, no, yeah.
So the gold boxes got around it.
Yeah, in the case of that, you know, that's a little bit more gray area than black and white on determining if, like, are the Tengen games part of the full NES library?
That's a great question right there.
So,
Nintendo would say no.
Yeah, Nintendo would say no. I would say your average collector would say the Tengen games are, because they were sold in stores alongside the normal Nintendo games. You could go to Toys R Us and buy Tengen Tetris. But things like, Red Hood.
Little Red, yeah.
Yeah, like that, you know, that was sold like in basically like a Big Lots. Like, you know, it was not sold like really at retail. It was like manufactured to be sold in a mail order guide. In the back of a catalog, and the guy couldn't sell them, so then he just sold like his excess surplus to Big Lots, and then they sold them out that way.
Or those weird Bible games like Super Noah's Ark 3D.
Yeah, those were sold at retail. They're only sold at like basically religious stores. So that's another gray area. But there are some things that like
I love all
Action
these gray
52,
areas.
like Action 52. You could only buy Action 52 like by mailing the company a check from an ad that was like in a Game Pro magazine, you know. So it's strange. The further back you go, the stranger it gets. Like the Atari 2600 was like the Wild West. Like anybody could just make a cartridge and sell it. And they're still finding cartridges that came out, you know, in the early 80s for the Atari 2600 now that people, you know, thought they finished their Atari collection 25 years ago, and then all of a sudden a new game, they discover it exists, and they have to, you know, clamor to find a copy somewhere. But I don't think this has really been an issue since, like, really, you know, the Super Nintendo forward. And there's a few weird ones, like on the Jaguar. Like a game or two came out like after the Jaguar had ceased production, and then there's a couple on the 3DO that are the same way. That like Lucine's Quest on the 3DO came out like 2 years after they stopped manufacturing the 3DO. but it was sold in the store, like the same company that distributed the other 3DO games distributed it, so people consider it part of the set. But, you know, I personally don't consider, like, homebrew games that come out recently as being part of the set. I still buy them, and I think they're awesome and just as valid and as good as the old games, but, like, if I were trying to go for every Atari Jaguar game, I think there's like 72 Atari Jaguar games that were released for retail sale, and then there are like 450 homebrew games that have been released on Atari Age since then.
Hey man, if Cheetah Men isn't an official like Genesis NES title, then nothing is.
Yeah.
This game's tracking is just all sorts of messed up.
I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate because my view on collecting is buy whatever makes you happy. If you're not going to get any enjoyment out of looking at it on your shelf, then what's the point of any of this?
Well, that's kind of like that's my take. I buy what looks cool, whether it's a homebrew or not, or it's a ROM hack or you know, the real deal. If it looks cool, I want to buy it, and I have plenty of games that are homebrews and reproductions and ROM hacks in my collection that I love and think are awesome. And but you know, if you're going for a full collection, I mean, if you're going for a full collection, it's usually not to satisfy your own desires, it's to show off to somebody else. And if the community you're trying to show off to is like, well, you didn't really do it, man, then like, what's the point?
Well, I mean, at that point, then it's kind of there is a bit of a consensus involved. So.
Well, even then, like,
yeah, but there's always
I would
be
just
some
say,
idiot who's a naysayer. Just
yeah.
to be a little
Well, that's why I said consensus.
There's also
right?
people that say I shouldn't be writing guides or whatever, right? Or that I spelled something wrong, or they think I spelled fuck you.
Or that you shouldn't ask for more than the price of the game.
Or I shouldn't make jokes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this is as complete as I am going to get it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's strange. Like,
I'm very resistant to what other people think anyways.
Yeah. Like you mentioned Hagane, right, on the Super Nintendo. Hagane was released in Japan. You can get the Japanese copy of that game for like $70. But when it came out in the United States, Blockbuster for some reason was like, all right, Nintendo, well, we'll pay to have exclusive rights to this, and you can only get it if you rent it at our store. But people still consider it to be part of the collection, even though it was never sold, because Nintendo manufactured it, and Nintendo owns the rights to the game. So, you know, there can be weird situations like that where that happens. So, personally, if I were the king of game collecting and I could go back and lock everything into a set of rules, I would say Hagane isn't part of the North American Super Nintendo collection any more than like the Star Fox Championship Edition is. It was like a special cartridge printed for a special occasion. It wasn't sold in stores. You couldn't go into Walmart and buy it. It was like a special thing. And so
kind of like Final Fight Guy.
Yeah, like Final Fight Guy, right? So Final Fight didn't have Guy in a character, so Blockbuster was like, oh, we can get people to rent more copies of Final Fight if we have Guy in our version of it. You know, so I would consider that like a special print cartridge. I wouldn't consider that part of the set, but a lot of people do, and unfortunately, since I'm not the king of game collecting, I don't get to make the rules. We'll have to let the people on Nintendo Age do that.
If I was king of game collecting,
by that guy who's scamming gamers with WADA Gaming.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That's a whole big thing. Jared may know about that.
I think we all saw the Carl Jobs videos about it.
Oh yeah.
There's so many good gaming conspiracy theories. I love the WADA Gaming one. There's one that my buddy who is a police officer told me about, and this is one that like I've never met anybody else that really knew of it. I was talking to Jay and Billy from the Game Chasers, hanging out with them, and I told them about this, and they're like, someone else told me about this too. And it's one of the things that's driving up the cost of a lot of games on eBay. A few years ago, eBay stopped keeping records of their sales from like more than 6 months ago. So if you're like looking up the history of a game, like let's just say Super Mario Brothers 3, something that's really common that's worth around $15 to $20. If you look on eBay, it's only listed ever at $15 or $20 because the records only go back 6 months, whereas they used to go back like 20 years, and you could see when it was $5. So that, of course, is keeping the cost of games up when you search on eBay, and since price charting and everything are based off that.
Price charting does show older stuff, but when you go to click the links on it, it doesn't show the history.
It doesn't show anything, yep. So, but here's an interesting one that kind of plays into that. So, there was a copy of Super Mario Brothers 2 that was for sale on eBay, and it sold for like $245. It was just a loose, normal copy.
That seems a bit much for Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah, it was like $245. You're like, that's interesting. And then like 6 hours later, another copy of Super Mario Brothers 2 also sold for $245. And then it sold again, and it was all these different listings, and they all had the exact same picture. And it was selling over and over and over and over again for like $245. And then the next week, it went up to $255. And so over the course of like a month, this same copy of Super Mario Brothers 2 sold like 700 times. And I'm like, okay.
They could try to be a little bit more, covert with this.
It has to be some guy somewhere who like is trying to artificially drive up the price of this, and like maybe he's sitting on 1 million copies of the game, and he's buying his own copies, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that for like years. And so every once in a while, every time I would search the price of a game, I would see some like really common game that would sell for like, 2 orders of magnitude more than it was worth. And I was like, what is going on? So after seeing this for years, I was speaking to a Birmingham City police officer. And he told me that what these are, and it's not just video games, it's all kinds of collectibles, is that they're drug deals.
Money laundering.
What someone will do is they'll like want to buy, they'll want to buy some drugs from a drug dealer, and he's like, go on eBay and buy this copy of Super Mario Brothers 2 for $245 so I can guarantee that the money clears, and then I'll tell you where like the dead drop is where you can pick up your drugs. And they'll just sell it over and over and over and over again. And so this police officer is like, he's like, we're busting people all the time for doing this. Like that they actually are trying to write some software with an algorithm to determine how this is happening. But that one thing drove up the price on price charting of Super Mario Brothers 2 from like $8 to like $18.
Yeah. I mean, like, I do believe the whole Wada Games scandal and all that stuff, because I saw these rating companies do the exact same thing with Magic the Gathering. Like, it's basically, it's not even a secret, it's just open that people price inflate certain cards. And, like, Magic has some underpinning. It's got Arena to compete with now, and it has, like, some of the cards just are actually better than others, and they're going to go out of... Yeah.
Don't get me started on MTG. I was a professional player, like a pro Magic player for like 15 years. Like I played on the Pro Tour. I was Pro Gold for like 15 years.
So you know all about how people just inflate the cost of play sets and...
It was... Okay, so yeah, they'll inflate the cost of play sets and stuff. I mean, it's a captive market. You have to have the cards to make your deck. But nothing is ever as bad... And I never realized how that was a scam until I was in Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And the Pro Tour, it was the day after the set dropped. So the set drops on freaking Friday, and the Pro Tour is on Saturday, which was standard. I didn't even have any chance to get the cards. And they told me, it was my first Pro Tour, that like, oh, you can just buy the cards at the event. Of course you can. You can buy the cards at every event. Guess what? At the Pro Tour, they don't allow vendors, public vendors. It is literally Wizards of the Coast selling their own cards. And they are like, I'm telling you, like hot off the press, like whatever card you want, like, you know, you need 4 play sets of the Urza lands or whatever. They're like, oh yeah, we got them right here. Like, it's basically they cut them out of the sheet that morning. And the price is like, no joke, you could look up the price online, and let's say a card was worth $20. They'd have it for like $75 a piece. What are you going to do? Like, you have to buy it. You're at the Pro Tour in a foreign country.
Not participate in a Pro Tour, but I guess you didn't have that option.
Yeah,
When they expect most players to bring their own sets, though?
It just came out. No, it just released, dude. It's a set specific tournament, and the set just released the day before. So there are no cards out in the wild.
Yeah, so you have to buy it from them like at an inflated cost, and they're not buying anything back. And of course, they're like, "We covered your room and board and your flight to the Pro Tour. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can't just pack it up and leave." Yeah. But the one that got me was the night before. So the Pro Platinum players, who are the real wheelers and dealers in the community that really kind of drive the whole scene. I went up to their room the night before, and of course they knew what all the cards were like a year before the set ever dropped. Like, they basically beta tested the set for everybody else, meaning they already knew what the best deck was going to be. They were ready to win the Pro Tour the next day. And I literally walked up to Patrick Chapin, who's a famous Magic the Gathering player, and like, he's won the World Championship, and he's won the Pro Tour several times, but they were all play testing up there trying to get their deck set, and one of them said, well, we should switch out this card for this other card. And a guy went over to like one of those big white card boxes, you know, the ones like baseball cards and stuff. Yeah. And he flipped it open, and he's just flipping through it. And I go, what is that? And they go, oh, that's standard. And I go, what? And they go, oh yeah, Wizards of the Coast just gives all the pro players 4 of each card in the set when it comes out, and they're all like hollow foiled out. They basically just gave them like $20,000 worth of cards before the set ever came out to play with. And I'm like, how does anybody even compete in this?
You don't. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even compete with it. And at the time, I had a sponsorship deal. Like, I had a store that sponsored me. I didn't even buy my own cards. But, like, I didn't even have a chance to get the cards because they didn't open the box till I was already, like, on the plane on my way to the event. But anyway, yeah, it's amazing how you were talking about the WADA stuff, how, like, it's not driven by the public. It's driven by, like, a corporation. And, like, WADA grading their own games and selling them on their own auction house and then purchasing their own games.
Yeah.
Like, how do you compete against that? Like, what do you do to combat that sort of market manipulation when they control every single aspect
you can't.
You can't.
Yeah. It's basically like stock market manipulation, but with collectibles. It's pretty insidious either way, but I remember.
But at least in the stock market, it's not like one company owns every company, and they own the stocks, and they own the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, and they own Wall Street while they're at it.
Yeah.
Like, there's a really recent example of this happening in Magic. Right before the Dominaria set came out, from somewhere, a rumor got started that they were going to bring back slivers, right? Mm-hmm. And so, of course, people are like, well, now we've got to buy slivers. And the price of Sliver Queen went up from, she was like $40, and now she's close to 300-ish. Mm-hmm. And hey, guess what? No slivers came out, but a lot of people made money on that Sliver Queen.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then eventually they did reprint some slivers like a year or two later, which drove all the slivers up again. And then people realized, actually this card isn't all that useful. So it's not like she came back into standard or anything. See, I got lucky with that one card. I had a Sliver Queen as a kid. I destroyed a lot of my stuff when I was a kid because I didn't take care of it. And I got back into Magic a couple years ago. And mostly I've just been buying some of the stuff that I had when I was a kid. So I bought a Sliver Queen off eBay for $40. And then I just saw it increase 10 times in value. I'm just like, well, I guess I'm not going to get a second one of these. So, I limit my exposure to Magic because it's just, I'm not going to go beat anybody that knows what they're doing. I like the game on its own. So I kind of just make, like, themed decks. Like, this is my elf deck. If you make a card that, like, makes all your elves stronger, I will buy that card. But otherwise, I'm not going to go too far out of my way to make these decks. And certainly not going to get into a whole standard tournament.
He pretty much just plays with me.
I just play with Rebecca.
Well,
and he cheats, too, so.
No, it's not my fault that you got destroyed by sudden spoiling played at the exact right time.
It's not my fault because I didn't tap my mana.
Oh, Grady's gonna take a quick break. I will be back.
All right.
He didn't fully tap his mana, so I thought all
Oh,
his mana was tapped.
nonsense. Sudden spoiling, one of the few cards that could nerf your true name nemesis. You walked into it. It's not my fault.
You don't tap your mana properly.
It was tilted. What do I got to do? Hang it upside down from the edge of the table?
No, all of it was tilted, and you fucking said that some of it wasn't.
Well, we've got a pro Magic player here, so he can adjudicate this.
Yeah, I was also a level 2 judge, so.
Oh wow.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at what angle the mana's tapped. Both players are responsible for understanding what the game state is at any point. So
how can you know what the game state is if he's not?
You have to mentally keep track of everything he's tapped.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I know it is, isn't it?
And you could have asked at like any time for clarification because it was an instant spell during your turn, so you were in control of that entire. Like it was your game at the time.
I asked if you guys were
if you guys were at like a high level event, let's say you're at like a Pro Tour, a Grand Prix, or something like that, and let's say like he had tapped all his mana to cast a spell or something, and you weren't aware of what was going on, and you called for a judge, the judge would issue her a warning for not keeping track of the game state.
That seems like
I've seen players
mana in the previous round.
Yeah.
So
there's actually a famous player who has Lou Gehrig's disease, and he literally can't move his arms, and he's a pro player. He's very good, and he is in a wheelchair, and his mother has special permission to hold his cards for him, but she can't touch anything on the battlefield.
Nah.
So she can like hold cards up in front of his hand. She can move cards onto the battlefield. She can move cards from the battlefield into the graveyard, but she can't touch anything else. And he taps his lands literally by just like looking at them with his eyes and saying what's tapped. The cards never move. They're not tapped at all. They stay perfectly vertical. You just have to keep track in your head of what's been done. As long as he's like declaring what's tapped, then it's tapped regardless of whether he turns the card sideways or upside down or whatever, or does nothing.
See, he didn't actually declare what was tapped and what wasn't.
Well, then you both get a warning.
So
sounds like your Merfolk deck just walked into a bunch of zombies they weren't prepared for and legit win.
No, we both got a warning because you didn't declare what was tapped.
I didn't hear anything that said that anything would be overturned.
Oh my goodness. So, James,
this was years ago.
Yes.
She hasn't played Magic with me since, so I think we're both lost.
We've played since then. I just played your Dino deck against.
Oh, that's
what would you say? Like you have games you get to pick, right? Play 10 games, you get to play whatever you want, something like that.
Yeah, so like all my backlog is split basically into 3 categories. There's like modern games, which is like PS4 and PS5 and Xbox and Switch. And then there's retro games, which is like everything else. And then there's handheld. And so each one of those is kind of its own separate list. And whenever I finish 10 games from any of those lists, I earn what I call a gold star, which is like a pick your own game for that list. So if I like finish 10 retro games, I can't pick a modern game. I have to pick a retro game. And when that happens, like I said, I can pick any game in the list I want to play, or I can bank them and save them for something. I'll usually save them for like a really high-profile game I'm really looking forward to. So the most recent one I burned was for Elden Ring. I bought like a PlayStation 5 and I bought Elden Ring, and I wanted to play it. It seems weird to like buy a console and then not get to play it for 5 years. So I burned one of my gold stars to play Elden Ring. And so that's kind of how that works.
So I gotta ask.
That's fair.
What did you think about Elden Ring?
I thought Elden Ring was a fantastic game. I thought it was like a 10 out of 10 kind of masterpiece.
I had to write a guide for it, and it was miserable. It was miserable. I'm not going to get into like all the office politics because a lot of people let me down with that one by not doing their job. But oh, that was a pain.
It was really cool. I don't think the open world helped the Soulsborne series as much as I thought it would.
I think it forced them to copy paste a lot of bosses and dungeons.
They did copy paste a lot of bosses. That's one of the downsides. What I did like is that it kind of helped eliminate that wall you hit where you're stuck on one boss forever, just slamming your head against the wall.
Yeah, some variety.
Which is nice. However, it kind of lost some of that like claustrophobic sort of tight world building that the other Soulsborne games had. I felt like you got that at points, but then a lot of times I felt like I was, literally running around picking flowers, which I was. And so I don't think, I thought that was going to like revolutionize the whole genre. To say that Soulsborne is a genre, I guess it is, but
it is now, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it helped as much as I was expecting, but I think that they did a fantastic job with that game. It wasn't perfect, but to me, like a 10 out of 10 doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be like unbelievably good and head of shoulders better than its peers, which I felt like it was.
Yeah, Nathan does not agree.
I'm not a big fan of Souls games. I still think Bloodborne was better than Elden Ring.
I thought Bloodborne was better than Elden Ring. I thought they were both 10s.
Yeah, I'm very hesitant to give games a 10. Greg will give 10s more readily than I do, but on the other hand, like I don't believe a 6 is like a huge condemnation. Like I will give games that are still moderately fun a 6 because they've got serious issues. Like one of my favorite games ever is Dragon's Dogma, and I only give it an 8. I think it's like the best 8 out of 10 game ever made because it's got some serious objective flaws.
No shit, I gave Dragon's Dogma a 10 out of 10.
Really?
I platinumed it. Yeah, I loved that game.
Wrote a guide for it, platinumed it twice. I have it on Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. I don't know why I bought the Xbox One version. I have it on GOG. I have it on Steam. I won it on Steam, so to be fair, I didn't just buy 2 useless PC versions. They had a stream they were doing to show off the game on PC, and they asked like a trivia question. You get a free code, and I answered it correctly. And I was like, "Holy shit, I won something!"
I played it on Xbox 360.
Xbox 360 was the first one, vanilla, and then Dark Arisen 360.
Yep.
And then Microsoft made me angry, so I switched to PlayStation and Platinum is on PlayStation.
So yeah, for me, my rating system is it's a little different than I guess maybe what a lot of people expect. To me, a 5 is like neutral. I have no like opinion about the game, whatever. It's just a solid like meh. 6 is like good. Like 6 is fine. Like it's not great. It's just kind of a mediocre, but there's some good things to say about it.
Yeah.
To me, 7 is like an average, decent game.
I think 7's actually pretty good. Like if I give something a 7, I enjoyed it pretty much.
That's pretty good. 8 I think is like a great, like a well above average. 9 is like unbelievably amazing, and 10 is just like, I don't give a lot of 10s, but I will give them out if I think a game's worthy of it, if it does something really important, or it's just super addictively fun with very few irritating flaws. It's a little harder for me on the negative end. Like a 4 is a game that's just a little bad. 3 is like a freaking terrible game. Like it's just a really bad, awful, there's nothing good to say about the game, but it like works, like you can play the game. A 2 is like a game that like doesn't work. Like you can't finish the game, or it's so buggy it's unplayable, or it's just so unbelievably god awful, and that it's like soul crushing. and then a one
One is Diablo
like,
Immortal. It's not even a game. They're just trying to take it away.
like Diablo Immortal, I would have to give like
now.
a 4. A 1 is like a game that's not a game. So a good example of this is there's a game on the Nintendo, I forget the name of it, but it's just a tarot card simulator.
Like that Bible game on the Game Boy.
Yeah, so it's like not a game. It's not even a game. Like, so I remember that tarot card game. I rented it when I was a kid because I thought the cover looked really damn cool, and I brought it home and I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Boris Vallejo strikes again.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is awful. Like, it's just not a game, and so I don't think I've given very many ones out. You know, like Fisher Price spelling would be like a 1. You know,
Well,
like
technically a game.
Yeah, but here's the problem. It'll ask you to spell cat, and you'll spell cat, and it's incorrect.
Oh!
Because they like...
So
because
it's broken and barely
It's broken and bad, yeah. So,
okay.
like...
There you
and it, like, ruined it, like, made a bunch of 3-year-olds dumber, so...
That should be a negative score then at that point.
Yeah, so that, I mean, like, a
It's like
1's
this
pretty
game
bad.
is actively detrimental to society.
Yeah, it's like actively, yeah.
If we had an editor for the podcast, that would be the stinger.
Yeah.
It made a bunch of 3-year-olds dumber. Been a while since we had a good stinger.
I had a question that got stopped right before the beginning of the podcast. In your collection tour walkthrough, I saw that you had damage on your TV and you asked if there's any way to fix it. Did anybody ever give you a solution to that and have you fix the TV?
Of course not. No one had any suggestion. I've been through like every forum ever, and there are like 40 other people that have the same problem.
Okay. Well, I suggest sanding it down if it's rough, using a silver nail polish. You can either get a matte silver if you can find it, or you can get a mattifying top coat for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't get the mattifying top coat, you can always lightly sand it, and you might want to lightly sand it just to make it so it's flatter.
Mm-hmm.
And that should work. You can probably find a silver that can match it. Nail polish is
that's
really
pretty
good for that kind of thing.
I have done that on some of the clunker cars I've owned in my life to prevent rust. But it never occurred to me to do it on the TV.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Because, like, keeping nail polish, this is something that women tend to know. Clear nail polish is, like, amazing for so many things. And, like, people just don't tend to realize that nail polish has multiple functions more than just making your nails pretty.
So, see, Greg, he highly, highly, highly rates Dragon's Dogma. I've been telling you to play this game for like 7 years. He's not doing it.
Dogma is fantastic.
Yeah. Dragon's Dogma was that game where, like, I've always been like, story is like the most important part of the game. Like, and I played Dragon's Dogma, and I'm like, story doesn't really matter. Like, the gameplay in this is just so good, I don't care about anything else.
That story is just god awful.
I mean, like, the core concept is good. The execution of pretty much every element of it is, well, I mean, it's kind of one of those lighter storytelling approaches where they don't give you too much. You kind of gotta fill in some of the blanks in your head. I do. No, it's not good. It is very, like, understated Souls-like storytelling. And they let you miss, like, everything. If you don't go out of your way to find it, you're not gonna, like, the whole quest line with that witch Celine in the forest, they're not gonna tell you. So, but yeah, the romance system is so awful in that.
Oh god.
But the gameplay is so good, and I absolutely love character creation in general. And that game has a really good character creation system. Lets you do a lot with it. I mean, you can make your character so small they can fit in the goblin tunnels, and that opens up not enough new elements of the game, but the fact that it actually does something still
You can
ridiculous.
also make your character really tall, and they can get
Really
on the
tall and
weapons.
fat, and then they can then they can weigh enemies down easier when they're grappling them. So good stuff. Great game. So that's 2 people who recommend this game, Greg. You are now honor bound to play it.
3.
I don't know about that.
I recommend it too.
No, well, yeah, but you know he doesn't listen to you or me.
Yeah, it was great. I played through it on the 360, and then when Dark Arisen came out, I picked it up on the PS3 and platinumed it again. So
Yeah. I mean, this is the game that got me off of
Dr. Risen
Skyrim.
today for some reason.
There you go. You have no excuse not to play it. Well, get the PS4 version, seriously.
You gotta play it.
So, I gotta pick up a little bit of bone of contention with you. I saw on your 2-hour video where you're showing off your collection that you have a box copy of Planescape Torment. I do as well.
Yes.
It was one of the pricier PC games I bought. I absolutely loved Planescape Torment, and you mentioned that other people told you this too. I think it has got the best story in gaming, even after all this time. But you said you didn't like it that much, so I'm kind of wondering if you can like recall enough of the game, like what didn't gel with you.
So I feel like I'm too stupid to play computer
Oh,
RPGs.
jeez.
I don't know what the deal is. So if you watched my like top 10 gaming sins video, my number 2 sin was esoteric nonsense, where you get in these situations where like you don't know where to go or what to do, and I feel like all of those like AD&D based CRPGs were like that all the time, where you're just kind of like walking around not knowing what to do. And Planescape Torment wasn't too bad. I did finish it, and I played it about 3 or 4 years ago, and I think I gave it like an 8 out of 10.
That's about when I played it, actually, when it came out on the PS4 with Icewind Dale.
Yeah, it came out on that like that dual pack.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I thought it was pretty decent. However, I remember for many, many years it being listed as the #1 greatest game of all time on several like top 100 lists.
Well, no, it's not that for sure.
And so, like I said, I gave it like an 8 out of 10. I thought it was good. I said it's not as good as like those people that said it was the greatest game of all time.
I think it has the best story in gaming. I mean, obviously that's super subjective, so it's my best story in gaming. It slightly edges out BioShock and stuff like that. That's a fairly close race, but in terms of best game overall, no, the combat's way too mediocre in Planescape to be the best game of all time. It did well, yeah. It's a Black Iron game.
Especially in that collection.
Yeah, no, I mean even in the
Actually,
original had bugs.
I will say, Planescape Torment did have like it has one of the the whole Planescape universe, I guess, which is like a AD&D spinoff. The world building in it's unlike anything I've ever seen. I don't know of any other sort of fantasy or sci-fi game that is similar to that. I think that helps a lot. I thought it had a pretty decent story. I thought it was pretty cool. Like I said, I guess of all the CRPGs I've played in my life, that it would probably be up at the top. But I had to like stop and look up what to do. I felt like every 5 minutes.
A big problem with that game is like it has, well, one, it's second edition D&D, which is just, I mean, I love D&D and I grew up on second edition, but it's a garbage system. It really is. It's not intuitive at all. And there are a lot of under the hood like stat checks in Planescape Torment. Like you cannot do some quest lines if you don't say like have 18 charisma on your main character. You just will not get the dialogue options to say a nice thing to a zombie lady that will allow you to keep like one faction alive. So it's riddled with stuff like that. Super obtuse if you're just trying to play.
So like, yeah, I mean, it can be, the combat, was a little clunky, but to me it was mainly just like advancing the story.
Yeah.
So a lot of CRPGs, they kind of like throw you into this very detailed and well thought out sort of world, and they're just sort of like immerse yourself and experiment and try new things out until something happens. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to like experiment. I don't want to try things out. I just want to be like, just, you know, tell me what to do. A similar game is
the goal.
No,
I
that's
need a goal. Like the Divinity games on the new like Divinity
Original Sin.
what's it called? Original Sin and Divinity 2. I played those with my wife, and everybody was like, "These are the best games ever made," and like we both felt like 80% of the puzzles in those games, like the legit canon solution to the puzzles, I felt were like taking advantage of like a bug in the game to break the game. So like there'll be like a barrier, like you've got to get into this dungeon and you can't get into the dungeon because there's a magical barrier blocking your way. And it's like, okay, there's got to be a switch, or I've got to like discover a spell, or I've got to break a curse and kill somebody or something like that. No, like each character has a teleport pyramid to teleport them to each other. What you're supposed to do is take the pyramid out of your inventory and then find like the pixel on the barrier that you can pass through the teleport pyramid and then glitch through the barrier. And that's the canon way to solve the puzzle.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, thinking those games might not be that fun to actually play with other people. I was playing the first game with Rebecca, and it was fine, but there's a lot of slow periods when it comes to CRPGs like that, where you just want to talk to people and explore things. Can I actually steal this and get away with it? Okay, no, I got caught. Now the whole town's aggro, so I got to reload. And stuff like that is fine on your own, but when you're playing with somebody else, you know, you got to coordinate all that, and it's not something you really want to do in a co-op game.
Yeah.
So I think that might drag things down a little bit. Like, that's why, guys, I've never asked you, hey, like Baldur's Gate has a multiplayer mode. We should all play that. No, I don't want to play Baldur's Gate with you guys. for good reasons. I think that have nothing to do with not wanting to play with you guys. So did you ever play Baldur's Gate 1 and 2? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I did play Baldur's Gate 1 way like back when it came out.
Oh, okay.
I was too young and like couldn't figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And I played Baldur's Gate 2, was it Shadows of
Yeah.
I'm sure
I played it shortly before I played Planescape Torment, probably like also 4 years ago. And it was the same sort of thing. I was just like stuck the whole time and I had to keep looking at walkthroughs.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're not a big like D&D guy.
I'm okay with D&D. I played a little bit, but I feel like my imagination is, like you said, like you save your game, you're like, let's see if I can steal something from someone, and let's see if I can do this. Like, that isn't interesting to me. Like, I do that for a living. Like, I'm a research scientist. I spend all day, like, trying to see if stuff works, and I don't want to come home and see if something works. I like a well-crafted narrative. I made this analogy before, like, games like that, to me, it's more like doing a crossword puzzle than it is like reading a book. I want to read a book. I want like a well-thought-out narrative that has like exposition and a story arc and a beginning and a middle and an end, and like a way the game was designed to be played. I don't want to like be thrown into this world and just kind of like fumble my way through it. To me, that's kind of like, I feel like the developers are putting too much on my shoulders to craft my own fun. And I'm like, I'm not going to experiment with it. I'm just going to go through the game. You know, and like I said, Divinity Original Sin was the same thing, where it's like, oh, there's this combat encounter you're supposed to do, and like there's no way you can kill this enemy. Like, it's impossible. Like, they one-shot you immediately or something like that. And you look up online and everybody's like, oh, well, I brought this indestructible barrel from this other fight, and I like snuck up on him and I deposited the barrel in the middle of the battlefield before I started the encounter. I don't want to do that.
I mean, no, yeah, stuff like that. I feel like there should be solutions to these battles that just involve your character and what you can be reasonably expected to do and have on hand.
That's kind of the strong point of games like Fallout.
Kind of. I was going to ask him.
You don't have to fight the Legion at the dam.
Well, see, I like that's the thing. I like figuring this stuff out, and it's funny because a lot of people like you are kind of the reason that I can afford to buy plastic minis, because there's a lot of people who are like, you know, they've got a full-time job. They don't want to go into Fallout 3 and have to figure out what the best build is and what perks they should pick and where they need to go to find this item. That's why they just go to my guides and they do that.
Yeah.
Right. But I also kind of agree with Greg, because I don't want to have to like know ahead of time three dungeons ahead of time that I need to keep this barrel so I can place it behind an enemy to light an oil slick. No, like, you give me a spell that lights the oil slick, or like, screw you. Yeah. And I feel like that's the difference.
A little bit of that is fine. Like, a little bit of it's fine. Like, there's an encounter or two that are kind of gimmicky like that. Like, the Bed of Chaos and the original Dark Souls is kind of gimmicky or whatever. That's fine.
Yeah. They always had a gimmick boss.
Yeah, that breaks up the monotony of things. But, like, I feel like CRPGs, every minute of every part of those games is like that all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to assume you didn't like get to Throne of Baal in Baldur's Gate 2, because like you have to know the spell system pretty well, and you have to buff your characters before every fight. And like,
yeah,
it's one of those stupid things that CRPGs do, that especially D&D ones, that if you play tabletop, it's just going to drive you nuts. Like, I remember writing the Baldur's Gate 2 guide. I had a program I used to look in the game files, and you could see what every enemy was equipped with, and they just had like invisible, undroppable rings that gave them like +5 to armor class and a whole bunch of saves and resistances, and they all had like elven chainmail. That it was the stuff the developers put on the enemies to boost their stats so they could actually compete with a high level party. It's like, yeah, well, when there's like 40 of these guys on the map, it kind of makes my like high level adventurers that have defeated, you know, quasi deities seem a little less special.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's either you can have a game where you can have things that you actually fight, or you can have it make sense. You can't have both.
Yeah. No, I never did get the expansion. I had it, and I guess it's in the backlog somewhere for me to play. We'll see. I do want to like experiment with them. I want to like them. You know, like,
yeah.
Every one of these like CRPGs that is released like on modern consoles, I pick it up, and with the intention of like falling in love with it, but. So far, and maybe it's just something I need to like dip my feet into more and be more willing to experiment with. But you know, as you get older, you like lose patience.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. Everyone likes different things. Like I love the design on some games, like Overwatch. I love the character design. Like most of these fighting games that come out, character design is so good. I'm just like, why wouldn't they just make this an RPG? Because I can't be bothered to learn, you know, the frame timing to do all these moves. I'm just It's,
hey, you like the character design in Overwatch? I don't think you would ever say that around me.
No, the character design in Overwatch is great. The gameplay is shit. I'm not
a lot better when everyone was new and I was a dwarf and I could put cannons up.
I mean, I had fun playing Mercy for a while as like the dedicated healer before everyone got so good at picking our offense. Like, I'm not going to spend like 30 hours a week keeping up with the game's meta and refining my skills so that I can compete with the top players who are all spending the amount of time. Like, I'm not going to do it. I've got too many other games to play. I've got other things I want to do with my life. So that's kind of what keeps me from a lot of these games that require you to invest just all this time to play them. But I do think Baldur's Gate 2 is kind of like that middle ground where things are, like, battles are complicated, they require you to learn the system, but the system that you have to learn is pretty much something that you can do by just, like, having good party builds and not, you know, having to know what to pick up early on in the game. So, you know, like, if you run across a lich, and you just run into it, like, half your party will get scared because the lich has a fear aura, and then the lich will just sit there and like summon a demon and massacre your party, right? So it's like you gotta peel this onion, right? You gotta cast like remove fear on your whole party so they can't get affected by the aura, and then, you know, if you have a really good character build, you can go in there and be like, okay, what is this lich casting? He's casting Wail of the Banshee. Okay, I'm gonna cast spell immunity, necromancy, or death ward on my dude, and you can just like layer your defenses specifically to make this lich unable to pull its tricks off against you. And I find that kind of puzzle solving to be fun. But when a game, like especially some of these old like LucasArts adventure games, they expect me to know that I have to get this item and, you know, use this fucking worm on this clay pot to make it dig a hole. It's like, what? Like, this doesn't even make any sense. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
That's the part where
it
bugs me.
You mentioned philosophy earlier. And you minored in philosophy, right?
Oh, don't ask me to quote anything specific. Like I
So
remember
like,
Descartes.
there's the Platonic and Socratic method, right? So the Platonic method is, let's say like your car is busted and it won't run. Something's wrong with the engine, and you open up the hood and you look at it. The Platonic method is to look at the engine and think like, oh well, you know, it could be. The battery could be dead, or it could be the alternator, or it could be the spark plugs, or maybe the distributor's busted. And let's think about this beforehand and like figure out what the most likely cause is, and then we'll tackle that. The Socratic method is like, let's open up this engine and pull everything apart, and we're just gonna fly off the cuff, and we're just gonna use the knowledge we have and make it work. I'm like a Socratic method kind of guy. I'm like, I'm going to dive in head first, and I'm just going to use my skills to get through this. And I'm going to rely on myself to do it. It may not be perfect, but I trust myself enough that I'm going to be able to succeed at this. And these CRPGs don't work that way. You need to like, you've got to think before, and like you said, you have to put fear resist gear, like you have to have fire resist gear on yourself. I never think to ever do that. I wander blindly into every battle and every situation in my life, and I like literally just improvise my way through it. And
here's the thing, like it kind of all boils down to how you feel about reloading. Like, if you have to reload the game because your party got wiped, is that a failure, or did you learn something?
Right. So I'm like, if I wipe, in my mind, I've failed the game and I don't deserve to get to play it anymore.
I mean, like, I consider myself pretty good at Baldur's Gate, but I die all the time. And like, when you're dealing with a die 20 system, and like if something rolls a 20, it deals triple damage, and you know your head's just gonna explode. Yeah, like the old Fallout games, you can't really plan for that. I remember I fought the Master in the original Fallout, and I had a meme moment where I had a character in power armor, and I got the alien blaster early and the turbo plasma, so I was set. And the thing just like Gatling laser shots me in the eye, and I'm like, well, can't prepare for that. Shit just happened. So all my pencils have erasers, all my games have save states. So
you know, I come from that shmup 1 credit clear mindset.
Where,
like, the goal is to learn this and play through it without ever getting hit. Like, that's the success. That's like that's the bar for success in that. So in a CRPG where it's all about experimenting and stuff, it's just something that it's so foreign to me. I need to get into it more because I want to love these games. They're well crafted worlds with amazing stories and great characters and stuff. I'm just like, I feel like experimenting is cool to a point, but there needs to be more than one solution. And I feel like in a lot of these, it's really like there's only one way that it really works. And it's like, oh, you're supposed to explore this cave earlier and get the frost resist ring and, you know, then talk to this certain one innkeeper 40 times till they give you the dialogue option to get the thorn boots so you can walk over the spikes in the battle, you know. So
but lots of NES games did that type of stuff back
then.
I mean, it's bullshit.
I know. I agree with him 100%. Like, I'm gonna say something a little blasphemous, but I kind of view like 8-bit, 16-bit era of gaming kind of like the dark age of gaming, where a lot of developers didn't really know what they were developing for. You still had a lot of that arcade influence where they thought, we've got to punish these kids and steal all their lunch money. But when you're at home, that's really not a great game design anymore, in my opinion. Because you're not going to run out of money. You're just going to waste a lot of time. And I think the incentive structure for some of these games needed to be different for a home audience. as compared to the arcade.
Did you watch my top 10 gaming sins video? I talk about this exact thing.
No, I didn't. I watched the I watched the 2-hour one.
So a lot of those games were like really only 10-minute long games.
Yeah.
And so they padded them out with nonsense and extreme difficulty to make you feel like you got your money's worth.
Yeah.
And then later on, they started making the games extra difficult because of the Blockbuster and the rental system. They didn't want you to finish the game in a weekend and then not buy
Nintendo had illegal battles with
and they lost.
Companies. They sure did. They sure did. And so, yeah.
And they deserve to lose, too, by the way.
That mindset you mentioned was definitely a real thing. And, you know, it is kind of like the Dark Ages. They're experimenting and trying new stuff and just seeing what'll work. I feel like that carried all the way up into, like, the PlayStation 2 era.
Yeah.
But, of course, by that point, they had concepts of, like, pacing and things like that in games to worry about. So it worked out better, and you could have whimsical and kind of cheap and bad, and it can still be fun, where on the NES, it just, like, you know, it's hair-pullingly frustrating.
Having to crouch down so a tornado can teleport you somewhere. Yeah, we all know.
That's exactly what I mentioned in my video.
Yeah. We're speaking the same language here. Simon's Quest.
That's my Castlevania you're talking about.
That is Simon's Quest, and we all hate it. Come on, that's stupid, Greg. You
Star Tropics.
No,
there's a puzzle in Star Tropics on the NES that you can only do by taking a leaflet out of the actual game manual and dipping it in warm water to see a secret message.
Piss off.
And there's nowhere that tells you that.
How about that Sega with that X-Men game on Sega Genesis where you have to reset the console?
They tell you to do it.
Sort of, yeah. They say you should check the leaflet for the answer, but do you think it's the leaflet in the game?
Yeah, and I'm not going to be dipping any paper in warm water. I destroyed a lot of my stuff as a kid from neglect, but I didn't actively dunk it in water thinking that the paper would speak to me.
Yeah. So you mentioned resetting. That's in X-Men on the Genesis.
Yeah. I can't remember which X-Men though.
Yeah, it was the first X-Men where you have to defuse the bomb by resetting your console.
Yeah.
So the first time I ever played that game was actually on the Sega Channel. That edition you could get through your cable company to play games on your Sega Genesis.
They had an exclusive Mega Man game on there.
Yeah, the Wily Wars was on there. When you reset your console, it would load to the Sega Channel screen. So there's no way to finish that game on the Sega Channel.
Also on the Sega Nomad, they don't have a reset button on that handheld.
Oh, do they not?
Yep.
Great.
Sega was good at hardware design back then.
The Wii version of Star Tropics had a piece of paper that you would exit the game and dip into virtual water.
Wow.
To reveal the code.
I had no idea. It's so bad.
That's hilarious.
I mean, no, at that point they're referencing a meme, so that's bad, but it's also kind of good.
Yeah, it's kind of. I thought it was kind of good. They know that it's bad, and they've kept the essence of the badness.
There's other ones like the one in Metal Gear Solid where they're like, tune into the radio frequency that's on the back of the packaging.
Yeah,
so you run around the game for 10 hours trying to find the packaging, and it's like, oh, you mean the actual jewel case.
But at that point, is that that's almost DRM. I remember those old gold box games where you had to, they'd ask you a password, consult line 4 of paragraph 5 of page 86.
I remember.
Oh man, that's one thing I can live without. Jeez, yeah, I need to watch that top 10 gaming sins video apparently.
Yeah, watch it. I got to do a lot of fun with my video editing software in that one.
I think I've accidentally referenced it twice, or topics on it twice already.
Oh yeah, well, you actually referenced it more than you think tonight. I just didn't bring it up.
Oh man, we're nerds. We're all speaking the same language here. I love it.
I think if you play games long enough, I think everybody kind of falls really into the same mindset on everything. Things that are irritating are universally irritating.
So, you'd think so, but with this whole digital age, I see Game Pass and all this streaming, and I can't help but view it with extreme distrust because I view a corporation that's now just trying to lock all its software behind a subscription service and I want no part of that.
Watch my top 10's gaming.
There we go. We got it again.
So James,
Yeah.
here's a good question, and
Yeah.
I realize this is asking a lot. What would it take to earn one of those tokens? AKA, what would it take for me to be able to tell you what your next game to play should be?
I'll
I know
just
it's a
do
big
it
ask.
for you. I'll do it for you. I'll play a lot of games. I'll do it for you. If you've got one that's that worthy, and you know what I have to go through to earn it, and you think it's worth it, I'll play it.
Oh wow, you're making it way too easy.
He's already playing Steins Gate, so I'm kind of happy just with that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't complain really.
So, Greg, what would it take for you to stop being a bitch and play Dragon's Dogma? Everybody wants to know.
I have played Dragon's Dogma.
Play it for real, like a big boy.
You mean beat it?
Finish it, yes.
Well, those are two different things.
Is it really, though?
Kinda, yeah.
Are you asking him to platinum it? Or
Yes,
are you asking
James,
him
the
to
thing
go
that
through
they've
it,
heard that you've never heard
kill the crap?
is that I played Dragon's Dogma and it was fine. And I found this, like, companion. I forget what their name is. Pawns?
Yes.
And
Fuck, what's the name of that first one?
I was like level 5. This pawn I got was like level 90.
Oh, because you had one of your friends' pawns come join you and ruin the game. No, don't play with any friends' pawns.
These are not things that were known to me, right?
Well, you could have asked somebody.
Yeah,
You did
maybe.
ask somebody.
So, like, this pawn just kind of made me lose interest, more or less.
Yeah. I bet so.
Took the fun out of it. Wasn't
I've
that
had that.
interested.
I've had that. I've had friends and their goodness at video games ruin it for me so many times. It's one of the reasons I don't even play online games anymore. The last online game I really played was Destiny, and all the guild I was in, these guys all worked for Curse, and they literally wrote the strategy guide for the game before it came out. And it was like, I remember we were playing Deathmatch, and I was playing with the guys that like wrote the online strategy guide for where all the choke points were on all the maps, and their KD ratio was like 57-1.
Well, I mean, obviously they were qualified to write a guide.
They were ready, but they're like, we've been playing multiplayer on this for 2.5 years, and it's like the day of the release, and you're just like, oh my god, this is so miserable. And like the new expansions would come out, and it was like they would speed run to the last boss, like and just wipe him out. They're like, I remember the Fallen King or Taken King or whatever it was. There was a trophy for like, I think defeating him without taking a hit or something, and they all did it solo on the first day, and it was like a 10-man raid. They could all do it solo. They're like, yeah, if you stand in this corner and you clip through the wall with this certain sniper rifle, you can. And I was like, thanks. This makes it so much fun for me.
That sounds like how we platinum killing.
Well, no, that was bullshit, and I have no regrets about doing that.
Yeah, we may or may not have used similar clipping technologies.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So what game do I have to play? You want to use up one of my stars? What game is worthy of it?
I haven't got that far in it yet.
So you asked him for this and you didn't even have anything like.
Well, why is he gonna think about what he wants him to play if he doesn't know he can get him to play something?
Yeah, there's steps to this. I will come back to you, good sir.
All right.
And it will be. You've already heard Nathan say that I wanted him to play something that he ended up loving. So you're in good hands. Don't worry, it won't be something bad.
It's not a 100% thing. So Greg's got me to play a lot of clunkers too.
I'll be happy to do it. A lot of the times I kind of, even when I like earn a gold star, I don't really even use it. I enjoy picking the stuff at random so much. It's almost like as fun as the game. It's kind of like gambling. You never know what's really going to happen, so there's an excitement behind that too. And when like a game you really want to play finally gets picked, it's it's thrilling. There's a lot of exhilaration with it.
It also must be nice to, you know, pick up a game and be like, oh, why? I gotta play this shit. And then you play it and it turns out to be like a little bit of a hidden gem or not as bad
That
as you
shit
thought.
happens all of the time. That happens
Is there,
all
what
of the
would be
time.
your top
What exactly am I
top
looking
game you would say has ended up like that for you?
Like
Like you were just
there's been a lot of them
regretting
that,
it, and it ended up just being one of your favorites.
well, I'm not sure of all time, but one within the last few years is Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Oh, I know that game. I know of that game.
I've heard of it
Sayonara
too.
Wild Hearts is one of the best games I've played in the last 5 years. If you can get into the mindset of like what it's all about and understand really what the game is trying to say, it was like I think one of those GameStop like buy 2 get 1 free days.
Yeah,
and my
that's how I
budget for
got
that
it.
day was to like only pick games under $15. And I was like, I've got to find one more game that's around $15, and there just weren't any. And I was like, I guess I'll get Sayonara Wild Hearts. I've heard of it. That was about as far as I got into it. And I played it, and it's unbelievably good. It's a 10 out of 10
What
game.
makes it good? The gameplay, the story.
The gameplay is fine. The visuals are cool, but it deals with subject matter that I've never seen any other game even attempt. And basically what it is it's an allegory, so it's not like a direct story. It's the kind of the emotions and the feeling of a story put into a game. And it deals with this girl who like, and we don't know what happened. Like maybe it was a breakup or some sort of trauma or whatever. But she has been like ultra depressed
I found a
and
break in the line.
basically shut in her room for some extended amount of time. And that's where the game sort of
Hold on for
starts.
fireworks till I'm back.
And what happened is the game using like symbolism and different gameplay styles and different styles of music and different visuals goes through all of the events that happened
Line
that
looks
kind of
good.
brought her out of her funk.
Hey, you still there?
So like
Shit.
seeing friends again after being like locked up inside, or just talking to people, or going to a party, like building up the courage to go to a party and being bullied with someone, and or being bullied by someone and having like the strength to deal with that. It's just a beautiful retelling of what it's like to sort of will yourself out of grief, and it's told in such
which
a
can be
beautiful
very
and
hard to
masterful
do.
way. It's unbelievable. And I mentioned that game. I wrote a review for it on GameFAQs that I think maybe like 20 people read. And I mentioned it to a girl that I work with, a colleague of mine who'd been going through some really bad depression. And she went out and bought a PS4 and that game just to play it on my recommendation.
Oh wow!
And she said that it helped heal her heart more than like 3 years of therapy. And so when a game is like told that well, that it can have that much of an impact on somebody, I think there's something really special there. And if you can go into that mindset and like really let the game absorb you, and you absorb the game, I think it's really a unique experience. I've never seen any other sort of media try to tackle. If you're the kind of guy that just wants to get online and just frag people for an hour, it may not be the game for you. But if you're really
Yeah,
into
Jared.
like if you're really into like the games as an art and you want a unique experience, and you really like want to feel what the creator of this game is getting at, this game achieves it better than any other I've ever seen.
That's one hell of a recommendation. For what it matters, it's 97% positive on Steam.
Yeah, it's amazing. Unbelievable.
What's it called again?
Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Okay.
And it's narrated by Queen Latifah, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, I feel like I could sit here and ask you about various games I saw in your collection and what you thought about them all day.
We could do this for hours.
Yeah, but we probably shouldn't do it forever. I do recall you, when you were going over your game collection, you were picking out some of the more esoteric things rather than necessarily the most popular stuff, so that did interest me. You seem to be very big on importing stuff from Japan.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I got to admit, I'm a Luddite. I tend to only import stuff if I think I can get a new trophy list out of it. Or I can't get a physical edition some other way. Sometimes that has happened, but you're more of like a connoisseur of games that are perhaps not translated or just otherwise really, really hard to get?
Yes, sometimes. I mean, some games really you can only get in Japan, and when they're like obscure in Japan and people in Japan don't know about them, it's, there's definitely some desire there to acquire it, and kind of you for once get to be on the esoteric side and know something what other people don't know. And then sometimes Japanese releases of games are like, half the time limited run games comes out with a game, you can get the Japanese version and it's in English and it's, half as much and a better version. So
yeah, that's always a great thing. Like I love Play Asia and limited run games for access to stuff like that.
Yeah. Like
what do you do for the sorry, what real quick, what do you do for the game collection if it's Japanese? You don't put that in the backlog, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can't like read it or understand it?
I try, man. I try real hard. Like I did take Japanese for 2 years in high school, but I didn't learn shit. So I basically speak no Japanese. However, Google Lens will help a lot with that, with giving you translations. You just point your camera at the screen and it'll like translate it for you well enough. But there are a lot of dedicated people out there on like Japanese websites, especially for RPGs and stuff, that have like written and translated the entire script for games. So as you're playing like an RPG, you can literally just like keep the script pulled up on your phone and just read along with it.
Oh, wow.
And it'll say like, press the X button for this prompt. You should be seeing this on the screen, and then hear like the next 40 lines of dialogue. And then if you made this, like when it comes to this decision, the top word means this, the bottom word means this. If you pick the top word, turn to page 57. If you pick the bottom word, go to page 93, and so you can work your way through that. But I sometimes I have to admit, you come to a game and there's just such a language barrier, you can't, it's so obscure, there's no way to do it. And then sometimes you just kind of like fumble your way through a game. I've beaten RPGs that are all in Japanese, and I spoke no Japanese, and I found no translations, and I have no idea what happened. I have no idea what was going on.
It kind of ruins it for me.
I can't say
it does bug
that we haven't done that. We, when I say we, Nathan and I had a period of time where we were just platinuming Final Fantasy 15 over and over and over and over.
I didn't even like that damn game.
Yeah, we played through the Korean version in its entirety without any
Well, it
English.
had English voices, but all the menus
Just no
and
text.
whatnot were
That's funny. I actually haven't played Final Fantasy 15 yet. It's like almost at the top of the modern backlog. I think it's maybe 3 games down. It was a high priority game when it came out, so it kind of like started higher up on the list, and man, I want to get to it. I like Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy 15 seems like it's going to be
it's got some
decent.
It's got some good stuff. It's way better than it used to be. They changed it quite a bit. It may be the most disjointed Final Fantasy game I've ever seen, because they have that movie. I don't know if you saw that prequel movie, Kingsglaive.
Yeah.
They have the anime thing that came before it. They just released it in so many different forms of media.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's disjointed. I really feel like part of reviewing a game is the story should be in the game itself. I shouldn't have to go watch a movie.
Yeah, no,
I shouldn't
agree,
have to go
100%.
watch a bunch of anime. I shouldn't even have to read the manual, really.
You're 100%. Well, okay. You have to give a little bit of leeway for old PC games where they just didn't have enough space to put all the text in the game.
I mean, I don't have to.
You have to.
It doesn't seem like I have to.
I am pronouncing it. Like, what do you want them to do? Give you 20 floppy disks with the game? You have to switch them out every 5 minutes to read what the mayor says to you? Come on now, no one wants to do that. They just give you a book.
But yeah, so you It'll be interesting to see what you think about 15.
Yeah, maybe you should make him play Final Fantasy 15.
They also had the DLC.
I'd make him play a good game instead.
They cut story out of the main game and just added it in as DLC.
Oh,
I mean,
classic.
they definitely did. There's no getting around it. Not that the DLC wasn't good. It's some of it was really good, but like how it came to be, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, they like what was his name? Gladiolus, the guy who has the abs. He just disappears for a time and then he shows up later on in the game, and it's like, okay, I see, insert DLC here. I get it.
Yeah, they literally did that.
It was almost as shameless as that NPC in Dragon Age Origins selling you a golem control rod. Except that conversation actually had a prompt to go buy the damn DLC, so a little more egregious there. Oh, man.
Oh, there's another series I could never get into. Was
Dragon Age?
Dragon Age.
Oh, man. Nathan.
No, I'm not that huge of a Dragon Age.
Huh?
I'm not that huge of a Dragon Age fan. Like, I like Dragon Age, but everyone told me that the first one was just like, oh man, it's Baldur's Gate, it's spiritual successor, and I played it, and I'm like, this is like equal parts jank and ass. And I've come to an appreciation of Dragon Age more now, and ironically, I didn't hate Dragon Age 2 as much as everyone else did, but Dragon Age Origins was just not fun to play on console, and I think the combat system was just, I mean, it did a bunch of wonky stuff, like you're not gonna like it because, like, I found out on one of my subsequent playthroughs that if you like play a mage and you learn the sleep spell and you get to pick all your debuffs, the game becomes so much easier and more fun to play, because then you're like the battlefield commander and you're gonna want to take control of the mage most of the time anyways, because then you can buff and you can heal and all that stuff. But if you just like pick a fighter and just want to go flash at things, it's not as fun.
Yeah, I played a human warrior.
Yeah, see, I knew it because that's exactly what I did too.
I platinumed it, or I got the 1000 gamer score on the 360, and then I did Awakening, and then I didn't play 2. And then when Inquisition came out, I got it. It was one of the first PS4 games I got.
Yeah.
And I went into it with the intention of getting the Platinum Trophy. Mm-hmm. And I looked up a Platinum Trophy guide beforehand to make sure there were no missable trophies, and they were like all missable. So I had to go through and like chart out exactly everything that was going to happen, and I followed this damn guide, and they're like, pick this class, summoner, whatever the hell it was, I can't even remember. And like, the game is a cakewalk. And so I picked this summoner class, and I was just getting like my ass handed to me. I was getting wrecked in this game, and I was like, what is wrong with me? And it turns out that they had like patched the game after the guide had been written, and that like 80% of the stuff in the guide was wrong. And I was actually stuck at a part of the game that was, because I had followed their guide to get the Platinum Trophy, that it was like unwinnable. And I had to start the entire game over.
Yeah, and
like
that stuff's just no fun, man. When like, because
the Platinum Guide in Inquisition is 2 playthroughs anyways.
If you're subjugating the whole like role play experience, so you can take a specific build and make specific choices, like I think that goes like right against the whole joy of playing these games in the first place.
It's one of the reasons I got away from like trophy hunting as much as I used to. It just, that, like, stressing out about missable trophies and things like that used to, like, I'd play a game that I was excited about, and I would dread that so much I would, like, stop looking forward to the game.
See, Greg's crazy. He did that arcade mini game in, why is it? Stardew Valley. And I was just like, that was one game. I played the minigame in that once, and I went, I am never doing this again. This is not the experience I want from this game. I love farming simulators, but I am not going to play some twin-stick arcade shooter throwaway fucking side game in Stardew Valley and let this ruin my fucking time with this game. Not gonna do it, not gonna do it. And I didn't, and I think I am much happier for it. Greg actually stuck it out and got the platinum, and I think he's much happier for that. To each their own.
Man. So Stardew Valley, I also wrote a review for that for GameFAQs.
I will give you I'll forgive you if you gave that a 10 out of 10, because that's right up there.
I did not give it a 10 out of 10. As a matter of fact, I disliked Stardew Valley. I gave it a 7 or an 8 out of 10. But I'll say this. It made me realize how much I hate farming simulators, and not only that, I removed every single farming simulator from my backlog and from my wish list and got rid of all the games.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I'm not doing this. I was literally one day sitting there playing it with my daughter, and we were watering our crops, and my wife came downstairs and was like, you need to go water the plants outside. And I thought, what the fuck am I doing with my life?
No, I was just playing the Harvestella demo this morning, and I'm sitting there like trying to plan out, okay, like I can go over to the wilderness area, fight a bunch of things, do some mining, get this material I need to build a hammer, and then if I can make it back home like at 7 o'clock, I can water all my plants, plant the new stuff, maybe, hoe up a few new patches of dirt, and got to bed at 10:30. Yes, everything, my money came in, loved it. And I know, if somebody made a dishwashing simulator or a lawn mowing simulator, I'd feel the exact same way. But for some reason, I have a big lawn to mow, we have a garden, we've got chickens. I'm not a big fan of doing that stuff out in the real world where things can bite me, or I can, have to wash my boots because I stepped in too much chicken shit, literally.
I don't want to hear any of this from either of you. I grew up on a farm.
He grew up on a farm, but no, this is what I'm saying,
This should not be stopping you.
Pressing X to spend some stamina to dig up a patch of land and plant my fantasy carrots that'll, grow in 2 days, fine. I dig it, I love it. Put it in the box and somebody sells it for me. I don't get bit by anything. I don't get dirty. They've gamatized farming to a point where I can tolerate it.
So James, just a heads up, I have a mini Harvest Moon shrine.
Really?
So this is
Congratulations.
Yeah, yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, I have if you watch my top 10 gaming sins video, I mentioned this. It's where they want you to make your own fun, like Minecraft and farming sims and stuff. And
you don't like building games either? Oh man.
I used to till I had to play about 9,000 hours of Minecraft with my 8-year-old daughter.
Oh well, that'll do it. Yeah.
And the other thing I hate is time limits built into games. Time limits
I loathe it. No, yeah.
Okay, so the crossroads of those is the Atelier games.
I was just gonna bring that up too. I really enjoy Atelier Ryza, but I looked because I was like, I like this Atelier game, and they have a million of them for older systems. Maybe I should go buy some. But I made sure to look some of them up, and I found out that you're timed in some of these. And I'm like, no, I'm not dealing with that. I'm a 37-year-old man. I am not going to plan out my fantasy farming schedule.
Yeah, the appeal of those farming games is the relaxing element of them, and when they put it under a strict time limit, the first one I ever played was Atelier Rorona, where there's a local farmer's market once a month, so you have to get everything done before the end of the month.
Yeah.
And so you'll plan I've got to go, grow my crops, and I have to go down and dungeon crawl to get the items I need to plant and all this sort of shit. And you plan everything out, and it's the fall festival's in 30 days, and you're so I've got to get everything harvested by day 22 so I can make the potions to sell at the fall festival. And then on day 21, the local sheriff shows up, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a search party going to find this girl who fell in a well or some shit. And you spend 7 days doing that. And it's oh, so all my best laid plans are just pointless now, and there's no way to play this game unless you knew beforehand that this event was going to happen. It's just oh my God, it's everything I hate.
Yeah, that's rough.
I should be fair. I hate timed things in games on the macro scale, not on the micro scale. If I have to plan out my day to make the best use of my stamina and my the daylight hours, or if I have to get everything done in the season, but if I don't get it done this season, I can do it next year or next season, fine. But if I if I have a window where I don't raise enough excess money to buy the beginner crops I need for fall, and then that's it, like, I'm done, the whole game ends. No, that I will not tolerate. I will not deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm willing to screw around for a couple of weeks in those games and get the hang of things, and then, like, try to do a better run next time, like the next year, if it rolls over and I get to keep my progress. It's kind of my issue with, we almost missed this. I was, like, thinking of winding things down, but now we got to talk about this. Roguelikes. I saw that you love, oh man, why am I mind blanking?
Binding of Isaac.
Binding of Isaac, there we go.
I really like roguelikes.
I like roguelikes too, but they have to meet me halfway, right? Like, let me keep some of my progress. Let me make it feel like I'm not banging my head against the wall.
Rogue Legacy.
Rogue Legacy, I adore. Hades, really good one. I haven't beaten it yet, but I liked it when I played it.
Hades is my last 10 out of 10, I think.
Hades is a 10 out of 10 for me too. It nails the whole metagame thing where every run feels like something you accomplish something even if you fail.
That's what I need in roguelikes. Like, if you reset all my stuff and I keep getting killed by the same boss because I'm not getting the RNG I need, that's when I start to go, okay, I don't need to be doing this anymore. Like, give me something.
I played one recently called Dungreed. And it was like a little mini Rogue Legacy. And I was really enjoying it. You like level up and you keep your levels outside of the game, and you can sort of for each level you get like a stat point that you can put into different categories to give you buffs, and you unlock weapons and all the stuff you'd expect in a roguelite.
Sounds good so far.
But the problem is you're level capped at 25 levels.
Oh.
And so I hit level 25 like by the time I was able to clear like the third of 10 levels in the dungeon.
Yeah.
So based off like that was where I like unlocked everything in the game. Everything else was unlocked through reaching different levels in the dungeon. So it was like there was no progress to make. It was just like get good or get lucky or find like an item that carried you or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I found out, like, oh, you can prestige your character, meaning bust yourself all the way back down to level 0 and level back up to 25 for a bonus. And that bonus was one additional skill point. And it's like you can do that like 5 times to really make yourself like level 30. And it was like this infinite grind. It was like I got through 98% of the game in 20 hours, and then I spent like 70 hours trying to do the next 1% of the game and was never able to like surmount it. And when I finally beat the game, I hadn't unlocked anything new in like 50 hours.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of bad design. Like, I will admit, I'm
Diablo Immortal.
No, not that bad. Not that bad. I mean, he didn't.
You can pay to skip that.
He didn't tell you that somebody like came to your house with a gun and said, "Hey, if you pay me, I'll let you get to the next level." I mean, I'm old enough now. I kind of know how my brain works, and I got to admit, like, I can be easily seduced by numbers. If you make my numbers go incrementally higher, the more time I invest in a game, I am more likely to keep spending time in your game. Like Diablo 2, I can play that game forever. I can just sit there and grind and grind and grind and grind, and I'll get that new rune, I'll get that new unique item. Like, give me something to grind for. And, you know, that's kind of the thing about Dragon's Dogma. You could get up to level 200 in that game, and I got to the 200, and I was like, man, I wish I could level a little bit more. Like, I don't care. Like, every 10 levels, you give me another stat point or something, whatever. I'll just don't cap the progress. So it feels like even when things are futile, even when I'm screwing around, I'm still making some sort of gain. Like, if you can trick me into thinking that I'm making gains by beating my head against the wall, I'll be fine with it. But
So, do you like the Disgaea series?
Jared loves them. I haven't played enough of them to say I do, but I keep buying them for some reason.
You can level up every character to like 9,999 and every item to 9,999.
I've seen those stupid... Like, okay, there is a limit. Like, at some point, I do identify that some numbers are just fluff and it's not actually going anywhere.
It has to mean something.
It has to give me a little bit of something. right? Like Paragon levels in Diablo 3, right? Give me a little bit of something. It doesn't have to be big. Just don't end my progress. Let me keep going. And I will decide at some point if I've spent enough time, but that does make the process of playing the game a little bit less onerous to me. Like, there's a difference when you require, like, if you force me to grind 20 hours to beat a boss, then I'm just gonna be like, no, you are disrespecting my time. But if you allow me to level up a skill by picking flowers, which I'm going to do because you made them bright and red and shiny and I can't help myself, then I'm more likely to just enjoy the overall experience of exploring and doing things like, kind of like the Elder Scrolls games did, or the old Quest for Glory games. If you kept climbing a tree, your points would keep getting higher at climbing, stuff like that. So
Man, you need to watch my video, my top 10 gaming sins.
Yeah,
You've hit on like 5 of them already.
I will earmark that. I will watch that immediately after this podcast. But it has to be getting near midnight, so we should start thinking about wrapping things up because Greg has to work tomorrow. Supposedly, do you have to work tomorrow?
Oh yeah.
I'm talking about. Okay.
I've got to be there in 6 hours.
Yeah, so I mean, as fun as this is, we could go on forever because I'd love to ask you, like, you did mention BioShock pretty highly. Could go on about that and that all day. We could talk about games because clearly we do this too much. But you know, we do have some adult things.
You can always say you're welcome to join us.
We could have you on again. We could have a part 2. We always do this every Sunday. Rebecca's 100% correct.
Yeah, we can do a part 2. I'll be up for that. It might be a few weeks, but. Yeah, I'm more than happy to do a podcast with you guys, occasionally even.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. Greg, if you have any like itching questions to ask,
I will tell you that I did do a guide for engaging position.
He did. He platinumed it too.
I did not recommend summoners, as far as I recall.
Well, good.
You played like a backstabby assassin or something? Or no, did you play that warrior type who got stronger the lower their health was?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of that.
It's been so long since I played it, I can't even remember. I do remember the assassin was glitched in the first version of the game, and you could, her ultimate skill, you could just keep triggering it. That was the way to get through hard mode back in the day.
See, I played one of those spirit warriors, and like they were fine on normal, but I got they tried them all.
There was also like on, especially because Nightmare. That was the hardest trophy back in the day. There was one of the early Cassandra like personal quests you could do. She gets a skill point. You can do it over and over.
Oh, you cheat!
So you could
like in Dragon Age Origins, you could keep duping the books and stuff and duping gold. Yeah. If I had to give you one piece of advice for maybe enjoying CRPGs a little more, very simple piece of advice, perhaps. Always play a mage, because they're going to tend to have more tactical options. And I mean, I like being in the shiny armor with the gleaming sword too. But I've just kind of learned over time that a lot of the time the mage is going to give you more options once the actual dice start rolling. And
I'll have to keep that in mind. I almost always play like a ranger or a rogue or something.
Yeah. I mean, see, that's why you like Dragon's Dogma so much, because the bow combat in that game is so fun.
Yeah,
I got you. I got you pinned down. All right, I think that'll do it for this episode of the 3G podcast. We will have to do another podcast to actually discuss the news. I kind of figured we wouldn't talk about too much news this time, so Greg, we'll work that out. And I will let Greg be your liaison if you ever want to come back and shoot the shit more about video games, because we do this every Sunday, so always nice to have somebody else who'll do some talking.
On here
and Nathan, I've already tried trading games with him, so don't worry. I got that covered already.
Well, no,
he didn't go for it.
I did tell you to stop talking to Greg, so maybe we'll have to work something up, because he's going to be like parasitically lampreying and trying. Do you have an extra box copy of? Hey, you should platinum this game.
You have. I'm your go-to guy.
I'll trade with you when I have trade stuff. All my trade stuff. I had like a whole closet full that I got rid of recently.
You just missed it, Greg.
Yeah,
just missed it. There'll always be more. There'll always be more. Don't worry.
But like Rebecca said,
add each other on your friends list, Nathan. And
I'm aware. We have a Discord server where we talk about all kinds of shit. So it's.
Oh yeah, I'll join your Discord server for sure.
Fancy, but then you're going to be exposed to all of our personal bad traits we haven't decided to show you yet. Maybe
I'm
we'll
not
save
on
that for later. Greg's not on it. He says he doesn't do Discord, but whatever. Fuck Greg.
Clearly on the draw here.
Like Rebecca said, if you ever just see us join a party to chat, you can always jump in because we're just always just shooting the shit. We're never doing anything important, so.
Awesome.
But with all that out of the way, nice chat. Nice to meet you. Amazing
Thanks so
how
for
much
having
we
me
agreed
on.
about gaming stuff. It's always crazy to
Thanks
get
for
another
joining
crazy
us.
person here. Until next week, that'll do it for the 3G podcast. See you all later.